Past 7 o'clock, let's get started.
$150 for everything.
I want to thank you all for being so diligent. Sue, thank you very much for the effort, and I know you all put a lot into it, and it's a cohesive, and it's great.
Well, thank you to Bob and Eric for their contributions as well. It was a team effort, really.
Very good.
Are you paid well enough?
Double or sail it.
What I thought we would do is,
Maybe in dark chocolate.
what I thought we would do is go
As
through the
noted.
document tonight.
Okay.
We'll go through the document tonight. There are some comments that you had left in there to be determined. We'll talk a little bit about that. I just had very few comments, and they were just little editorial things. There was no contextual change to it. And then we can go through everybody's and see if anybody has any comments. Doug's got it up on the computer. We can make the corrections right here just to make sure everybody's comfortable with it.
And Sue's also got it up on.
And Sue, you got it too, so we'll make sure everybody's on the same page here, and we'll see if we can get to a final product or close to a final product. Does anybody have any comments that they want to go through first before we do?
To the proposers.
I just went through the whole document and I recited pages and very minuscule little things, so just go as we go.
Yeah, why don't we do that?
Or page by
I
page.
think the front page is fine.
Yeah.
We take off draft eventually, but it looks great. Going into the, what is really not, yeah, it's page 1, and the background. I think that the blank space was actually, if I remember, the charge was March 31st, 2019.
Yeah, I took that out because I just wanted to confirm that we were going to wrap it up by then, and I figured we could always add that
Yep.
at the very end.
Yep, no question. And we'll hold off on that until the end and figure out where we are. Did anybody have anything on page 1 that jumped out at them?
Well, yeah,
Okay.
I do, but let's, I was hoping to talk to Beth before. I went through it, and Beth, I thought you did a terrific job.
I have to defer to my partners, but
All right, well, whatever, it's not anything. But, and I'm an old newspaper reporter, and I can't help myself. And I have a lot of little things. And I was really thinking, Jack brought it up, that I was going to see it before and show them to you and not waste everybody's time on line by line, but I don't know. However you guys, I'd like to, the idea is worth mentioning, but I don't know if they're worth slowing everybody down. No?
No,
What do you think, Zach?
we have time, and I don't think they're going to be all that many when the time comes, so I'd say let's go through it.
No, no, okay. All right, well, on page 1, this is like when we were there, we talked a couple of times about public referendum. But referendums are by nature public, so get rid of public.
Well, it's not, you could have a, that's the word I'm looking for, Andy.
1, 2, 3, 4th paragraph.
What's the other
down.
referendum that the town board can do?
Permissive.
Permissive. So you could have had a permissive referendum, which we didn't have.
Yeah, but it's still a referendum, that's the point. You can't have a referendum.
You're just
that's
saying it's
not public.
redundant, okay.
Yeah.
So does everybody feel comfortable pointing the word public out? Yep.
I don't think it really matters. I mean, like, things,
No.
I think for people that don't know, not everybody knows that, there's public referendum and permissive referendum, and I think it is important to say that this was a public vote, or, not everybody knows, or,
Yeah.
it doesn't hurt to leave it, so let's leave it and qualify what kind of vote it was. That's my vote for the word,
Everybody
for the
comfortable?
phrase vote.
Any objections to that?
Yeah, well, once again, we can talk about this all night long, and Trish is right, the word public votes would be fine. But it's public vote or a referendum, it just, but, I just don't waste everybody's time.
No, I think we should
Yeah.
still do it anyways,
Rather
and
than
we may come
all
up with something that really has some interest there on these parts, so. Is there anything else on page 1 that you're thinking about?
Well, on this page? No.
Okay.
also if we strike the referendum and just keep public vote.
That's fine.
Well, I think referendum is actually the operative
Better?
word here.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what it was.
That's what it was.
Just leave it the way it is.
All right. Okay, we're gonna leave it.
So, I'm sorry.
Let's take a vote, let's take a vote again.
No, we're leaving
Leave it the way you had it.
Leave it.
Sorry, guys.
Okay, no problem. Page 2. Everybody good? All right.
I might just make note, so there's no confusion when, especially when Tony reads it, items not on the table for consideration. When Tony, the written charge doesn't include the Clark House, but that came up at the very first meeting, so
Right.
I added that in.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's okay.
I just want to make sure we're clear on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's fine. Page 3. Very good. All right, page 4.
Yep.
Well, I'm sorry, guys. When we decide the referendum, is public still in or not?
It's in right now, yes.
It's all right, because the same thing that comes over on that page.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
Page 4, we got to the point where you'd asked the question about the 207 versus the 212 acres.
Right.
Yeah, the 212 includes the Clark House.
And we were only responsible for the other part.
No.
Yeah, you're right.
Is it a big deal? I don't know.
I don't,
There's a nitpick.
What if we just-
I don't really
I don't
care
think it's a
whole
big
lot
deal
one way or
to
the
leave
other,
it the
but-
way it is, because even though the Clark House was part of this, the parking facilities accommodated in Clark House actually accommodate some of the recreation proposals you made. I'd leave the whole thing in as 212 unit. 212 unit.
Also on page 3, it starts out the 212 acre property. If all of a sudden you change to 207,
Yeah,
it'll be
right.
confusing, so.
You'd have to change
I'd
it.
leave it at 212.
Okay, let's vote. Let's leave it. Yay.
Everybody okay with that?
Yay.
Does anybody have a problem with that?
No.
Very good. All
I
right.
have an addition to make on Susan. When we started this whole committee, one of the first things we did collectively was to tour the back nine. I think it's important that everybody that is reading this report be aware that we did not do this just haphazardly, that we actually toured that property so we knew what we were talking about.
Well, actually, you did it twice, too.
Yeah.
There were 2 walks, and we probably
Right,
should
so
incorporate those walks
Yeah, I think
into
that
the
that's
document.
important.
Okay. I can do
Yeah.
that.
So I think it was the 13th and 20th, was it, of October?
I have to check. Can't
I can tell you.
see if I can beat you.
Is that long ago?
Wherever you want to throw it in. I
Sure.
don't really care.
Just keep it in context with
Yeah.
the timeline, that's
Yeah,
all.
I will,
And I had another thing on page 4, this,
It was a
This-
Saturday.
Yeah, well, it's done by nine.
That should go back on page 2, where it
or
says
wherever it should go.
where the committee spent several
Just hit me on page
several
4.
meetings discussing, yeah.
16th and 16th and 20th of October, we're doing the planting.
So you're saying on page 2?
somewhere in.
I don't really, it
somewhere in
doesn't
there.
matter, wherever.
Yeah.
And then the other thing on page 4, this first bullet, residential and/or commercial development should be avoided or at least minimized. I don't like the at least minimized. I think it should just be avoided.
Yeah. Second.
I don't know about anybody else, but I think it
Yeah,
should
yeah.
be
Oh, right, I agree.
deleted.
Okay.
So you want to cross out everything after avoided?
Yeah. Minimize, yeah.
Avoided, focus, and focused on.
Yeah, and focus
And
on,
focused on recreational.
yes, please.
Yeah.
Good.
And then also on that page, somebody explain the flexibility portion here to me.
So this
I
was
read it several times,
This was the
please.
comment about the reversibility that people didn't like the language of that. So I think, I'm gonna let Bob kind of chime in here,
Real
because this was
quick.
really his comment.
So the
I think
thought-
that what-
yep.
I'm sorry, let me just finish and then, so with just taking everybody's comments and thoughts about that, I reworded this to just allow the town to have the ability to return something in the property that maybe doesn't have a lot of interest or is being used very well to something else that's more valuable to the city.
That's all.
That's what that's supposed to mean.
Okay.
And I like that because 10 or 15 or 50
Okay.
years from now, they might be doing something that we never even conceived as being a
Right.
recreational use and everybody would love there and would not be
I
impacted.
just want Bob to chime in because it was really his statement that I reworded, so if Bob has an additional comment.
No, I had used the word reversible, that
Yeah,
if you did
I
something
remember that.
and you didn't like it, you could return it. And I think, Eric, you objected to, you thought that
Yeah.
was too strong, so I,
Or it was just more, it was
Okay.
more that it was kind of nebulous, and it's like, well, what are we reversing it to? Are we reversing to what it was
right.
the
before it
idea
was a golf
is,
course?
the idea is if you put in a swimming pool.
Right, got it.
You put in a swimming pool, that's a large commitment. If you
Yeah,
put in a
okay.
soccer field, and it doesn't,
Just
you
for
don't
a
need it, you
while.
just,
Okay,
you can
okay.
change, yeah. It was-
Okay, thanks.
That's the idea.
Okay.
So is everybody comfortable with that
Yep.
paragraph?
Thank you.
All right, very good. So I've got two changes, or we've got one change on that page.
Okay, well, no, we're not finished. At least I have a couple more.
Oh, okay.
All right, with the third one down, municipal usage, I would have changed the word unfavorable to incompatible.
Where is that?
Where are you?
The next bullet down, third bullet.
The bullet, yeah,
The third bullet.
bus garages and meetings.
Unfavorable to
operations.
incompatible?
Yeah,
I can support that.
yeah, I mean, we don't want to be tentative about this. No.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way about the first bullet where it says should be avoided, like that's a little wishy-washy to me. I think we should say, something stronger than that.
Yeah.
Like,
Should not be considered?
should not be considered, yeah,
Should not be considered.
Yeah.
And focus should be placed on recreational activities.
yeah.
Focus should be placed, yeah. That's gotta be reworded.
Okay.
Doug, you're catching this too, right? So
Yeah, so I have it right now as residential and/or commercial development should not be considered and instead focus on recreational
Okay,
activities.
good.
Let's compare notes later.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Anything else, Steve?
No, nothing worth listening.
Well, this is our opportunity to do it, we're gonna do
No,
it.
let it go.
All right, everybody good on page 4?
Yep.
Excellent. Page 5? Anybody on page 5?
The only thing I had on page 5 is that there wasn't a bullet, and we spoke about this at the early, before people got in there, that there's nothing about signage, and I don't know whether it was necessary to have something in the document talking about signage throughout the park, different areas, different purposes for some signs, but that some signage be provided throughout the park.
I know there was some issue about signage being talked about later on, but it didn't really talk about all the types of signages that you might need. For instance, the name of the place.
Right.
It's gonna have
Well, yeah,
signs aiming the place.
But even beyond talking about
And
motorized vehicles, all
Right.
those kinds of things.
Right.
We didn't say anything about it here, I don't know if we
Oh,
should.
instead of just showing,
Maybe as a bullet, there might be
Okay.
a bullet related to signage.
So just on that topic really quick, I agree with Terry that I think we should have a general statement about signage. I think that makes a lot of sense for any park like this. I included some of the signage in the trails section because I found that is like one of the #1 concerns that people have when they're worried about like trail conflicts and stuff like that is how is everybody supposed to behave on the trails when you have all these mixed user groups. So I was trying to get ahead a little bit by just putting that. That was in my original part that I had typed up for the section that we were working on. And I just threw some of that back in. So we can talk about that particular thing when we get there. But
Yeah.
I
So you just
had
want
a
a generic
thought, I
bullet?
had thought about the same thing, and I was,
Added bullet on signage, is that okay? You guys can...
Yep, I'm taking
figure out
it
the
more in
language.
context here, that's fine.
I was pushing the idea that, I was trying to suggest a name even by calling it the Shadow Pines Recreational Area and trying to avoid the trap of calling it a park, but I was thinking we do need a sign with a name on it on what are you coming to visit when you come here. And I think we should add that either in the executive summary or the conclusion that as part of it needing to get some professional advice on how to lay everything out and a plan for the future, it also needs
a name.
some work on coming up with a name and developing signage.
I agree.
I think we should include that here.
I think, yeah, I think it
okay.
should be in the general.
Before you get into.
And
So we need to do a little more wordsmithing on that. Yeah.
And I think your recommendation of a name, like incorporating Shadow Pines in the name, I think that's a good idea too.
We'd like to keep the name,
Like
yeah.
Shadow Pines Green Space or something like that.
Yeah.
Means a lot to a lot of us
A
old
lot of
golfers.
people. Yeah.
Here I was gonna recommend that we call it Bob Peterson
Peterson.
Park. All right.
Bob Pearson north and Bob Pearson south.
You're out.
Shady Pines. Shady.
Shadow Pines it is.
As long as there's no neon sign flashing at night, I'll be happy.
We're gonna put that right on the south side, right next to your...
There's an arrow pointing to your house.
There's a little lot right behind right beside my
Flashing arrow.
my yard, yeah.
Parking here.
Anything else on those bullets?
Yeah, I got a couple. Let's see, where to go? The second one down, gas and motorized vehicles. Now, I remember there was a little emails went around about motorized vehicles, and I wonder what to call them. I think they're just motorized vehicles, because an electric vehicle is a motorized vehicle. But that's one thing. But more important, I think we need to add the phrase for recreational use, so that they're not, nobody will possibly think we want to prevent the town public works department
Right.
from going in there with their equipment.
Right.
Oh,
So add in there for recreational.
Yeah.
So Steve, I can address the gas and electric part, because that was my desire to have that in there, because I think that there are some people who look at their electric powered vehicles and don't see them as being in the same class as a gas powered
Yeah.
vehicle, and I think
I
it's,
suppose.
some people need a reminder that they are the same thing, just because they have a different power source.
does this preclude kids from running their RC vehicles in the parking lot?
Because the way you read it.
Yeah, toys powered by remote
Do we
control.
do we want it to be that strong? Or
Well, first of all, the parking lot
but
is a
somewhere,
dangerous
but-
place to be
Yeah.
putting
I mean,
kids.
we don't want
It's not safe
airplanes flying.
Well, yeah, and I get really
control.
nervous about putting kids into a parking lot where you're gonna have people coming and going on a
Okay.
consistent
Yeah.
basis.
So we mean it, okay, because that's what
Okay.
it says, okay.
I like, I don't know, I like, maybe just calling out, Penfield Public Works or, are allowed on the property or something. Just because if we say, for recreational use, they're gonna say, well, I'm gonna drive my truck on here to get to the pavilion in the back or something, I don't know, and it's not really for recreation. I don't know, I just,
No, you're right, and you can make it for maintenance purpose.
yeah, for maintenance purposes.
Except
or
for maintenance
something. Except for
purposes.
maintenance purposes.
Yeah.
I just don't want anybody to like.
What if you
think-
started the whole sentence with recreational gas and electric powered? Would that do it?
I think it's specifying the only motorized vehicles are for
That's still
maintenance
what it says,
purposes.
Yeah, you could just,
Yeah.
Zach has a good recommendation.
Yeah.
Towards the end,
And then just put in parentheses,
The
town
general
vehicles
public.
are
Yeah.
excluded from,
There's an easier way to say it.
say it,
At the end of the comment, just write by the general public.
thank you.
Okay,
Because
something like
it is
that.
town land. We're gonna go do what we have to do with our vehicles and equipment when necessary.
I added it
We're not
after
gonna get
the
that.
motor vehicle section, so it doesn't suggest that drones.
well, I
and
would
other
take that
photos-
down because we have a drone and we'll probably be
Okay.
utilizing it for inventory.
I have one more quickie. Right at the last line after the last asterisk, there's the word townspeople, but I don't think townspeople is the word.
Where
Townspeople of Penfield, and I don't think we can restrict our recreational area to town of Penfield people, even if we'd like to.
Right,
So,
Say by
I
the
don't know, we
public.
just,
by the public.
By the
or-
public, yeah.
Can I say general public? Is that
Yeah.
okay?
Oh, one more, guys. Sorry.
as opposed to
On that last paragraph,
Public,
the sentence said,
whatever.
next to the last sentence ends with the words, next to the last line, there's the phrase open space. I put a period there and cut off the other words after that. I think it makes the point more clearly.
Say again,
The
please.
paragraph right above land use
Yes.
recommendations.
Yeah, right,
Yes, okay.
So we think, both the
Yeah,
subdivision, subdivision planning, decreases.
All right.
Spectacular open space period is what you're suggesting.
Yeah.
I could support that.
Is anybody? Well, you don't have to support it, you're not on the committee.
Fewer words.
Does anybody on the committee have any concern for that?
No, that sounds good to me.
All right. All right, I just had a comment under the last, I'm sorry, the first bullet of the last two on the page. And it's the recommendation regarding cart paths should be maintained for handicapped use, suggests former holes 1 and 2. You have to understand that that whole facility has to be available for handicapped use.
Yeah, yeah.
It cannot be just one hole or two holes.
Oh, really?
The public has to have the right, handicapped or not, to go wherever they can If you're handicapped,
We can say wherever possible, or...
wherever possible, I would not limit it to 1 or 2 holes. I would say where available or where possible. for
Good point, good point, yeah.
I think the intent there was to make sure that we maintained
Those are
that,
updated to
at
that.
least that space and the requirements that met, like ADA requirements.
I think we can embellish that, just say, holes 1 and 2 and wherever.
Whatever else.
and
More
wherever
amenable
else
to
possible.
handicap.
We are eventually going to have to work to make that area accessible. We're going to have to make ADA requirements.
The back 9 won't meet the strict requirements of ADA, but it's not restricted from being
No,
handicap accessible and
if
everything
someone
else,
has
but it's
the
not.
ability to access it,
But you also made comments later on about overlook areas and that kind of thing, and they would be handicap accessible, and that would provide them the ability to get to those
Yeah,
areas as
yeah,
well. So,
yeah.
but you can't limit, and I don't want you to be put in a box doing that.
So
That
what are
was
you
my
saying
only
is gonna
comment.
come up on that? It's gonna say golf holes 1 and 2, and then the other spaces or something like that?
I would just say where possible. I wouldn't even limit
We
them to
took
1 and 2.
golf holes
1 and
1
2
and
is
2
gonna have
out.
to be
Okay.
accessible.
Just wherever possible.
I think it should be handicapped, not handicapped.
is that the word?
Yeah, I'm looking it up.
That's probably
I don't
a good idea.
think-
I'm not even sure. handicap-
Yeah, a handicap is for like
Yeah, it's
Handicap.
accessible.
golf or,
Yes, I think
yeah.
it has to be accessible. That's the word. Yeah.
Yeah, a handicap's
I
probably
don't
not
want to use the word
even
handicap.
like a PC word to use, accessible use, yeah.
To the
Are we still on 6?
maintained for
Yeah.
accessible use
On 5.
Plan
wherever
5.
possible.
So I think the only issue with that is that then we're kind of insinuating that the cart paths over the entire property, we're gonna try to maintain.
I thought about that from my later comments, and I know that you're thinking of letting it degrade down back to a natural state, which is fine if there's some material that we can put in its place that will provide handicap accessibility. If you just break it down and then throw something out there like straw or mulch, that's not applicable in terms of what is necessary to meet ADA requirements. So,
When you say handicapped, you're talking about wheelchairs.
yes.
So I imagine where the cart paths were, or where they would be extended in such a way that they would be usable as a loop or something
Right.
to get.
And probably not totally, because we walk down to the bridge area down there, that's gonna be a tough sell to get anybody up and down there.
For this,
But, and what you're saying is not off base. If the paths do degrade down, they just have to be maintained in such a way that it provides accessibility to those areas.
for this first bullet point, I think, because it is talking about the north side, the front 9,
That's true.
I think that verbiage works, because we're not discussing, what's gonna happen with the cart paths on the south side. This is the north side.
And
I
again,
think
at
the
some
north
point in
side,
time, we're gonna have
all
to
of
do a
those
master
would be
plan. in this
generally
area to figure out where we're
handicap
going.
or accessible use for any mobility level.
Yeah, so our intent in looking at it was basically the car paths look fairly continuous on those holes. That would be an easy place to start.
I know what you're trying to accomplish. It's just,
Yeah, no, I
just gotta go one
understand. It
step further.
can certainly be changed. It doesn't-
I didn't have anything else on the page other than that, so.
All right. So maybe the good wording, keeping in mind what Doug said, the committee recommends that existing cart paths on both the south and north side be used for multiple applications and handicap accessible where feasible.
Is there a conflict between family biking activities, etc., and handicap accessibility? Is there anything that precludes?
Well, it's handicap accessible though, you don't have to.
No, I don't think so. I think just as many people could be, physically impacted by a collision, whether you're in a wheelchair or not. And I think you did a good job with your signage to identify, you gotta call out, if you're on a bike, you gotta call out in advance before you're gonna be there to make sure everybody understands that, so. No, I think it's okay. Everybody okay with 5? All right. 6, I had the same comment in the second paragraph,
Back 9.
just to ensure that they remain accessible to all, or feasible.
All right. I thought the phrase deprecated in favor of the could be replaced by replaced with.
Where are you?
Right here, the second
Yeah.
Thing.
Page 6, second graph.
change deprecated in favor of to replaced with
Yeah,
natural surface
you
trail.
get the word the, which the. One more word, the.
Well,
Oh,
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
Thank you.
Replaced with.
Yeah.
I think just our intent was that,
Replace by.
that it wouldn't
Replaced by, well, either
wouldn't
way.
imply that the town would
Yeah.
have to like install something new in
Right.
place of those.
Just let it go to a natural state then,
Yeah.
from that point on.
right.
Because those cart paths are not necessarily gonna be the ideal locations for trails.
And we had introduced the network of multi-use trail, natural surfaces above in the sentence before that, Steve. I don't know if that plays into it.
We just get rid of that whole part with the intention that the cart paths will be deprecated. That's another.
Just network of multi-use, natural surface trails should be developed on the back nine.
Yeah.
Trails, yeah.
Trails that
Yeah.
support type foot traffic.
Everybody comfortable?
Well, I think it's kind of a good point, I think, that we had there, that we expected the asphalt would eventually break down and would not need to be replaced. I think that's part of our that I thought was the sentiment of the
That
committee.
was the direction,
Yeah.
right.
So I think it should be in there.
I think it gave better direction, at least to the town staff, as to how it would happen, rather than having to go out and dig it all up and start over
Yeah,
again.
that, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
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 So we go back to what it
So just
was.
leave it as is. Huh?
Is that the way you say it? I'm not familiar with that word.
Yeah, I'm not in.
Be deprecated?
Deprecated, like they would eventually be kind of taken offline,
A lot
if
of
you
be
will.
broken down.
I come from a technical world, so
Yeah.
I use that all the time.
I looked it up when I saw it.
What does it say? Read it. Can't see it.
I said, I know what he meant. but-
Where did you find me? Look it up.
Huh?
It's there.
What was the
You
definition?
said it break down naturally
It
too.
is a real word.
So, yeah, deteriorate. Yeah.
Or
Well, we'll eventually
that much.
deteriorate. Get rid of be.
Well, say,
Yeah.
deteriorate back to it.
There you go. That's a word that everybody,
Yeah,
most people
yeah,
understand.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Good word. Eric, good word.
Sorry.
I've used it talking about my car.
Yes.
Everybody comfortable with that word?
Yeah, I like it.
Everybody good?
Yeah, oh, well.
Yeah.
All right.
It's a lot of
Good job.
Anything else? Anything else on that page?
My SAT words.
Back to,
You could have paid for a higher grade.
Are we good with page 6?
Yeah.
On to page 7? Any comments?
Like the sign.
I like the sign a lot, yeah. It's cool.
I just found those, but those are
they're
two
good.
examples of I think probably the best signs that I've seen for these purposes.
Yeah, I like the yield one too. They're both really nice there.
We put them at the head of the trail, or
Yeah, you would typically put stuff like that at the head of the trail. Although I've seen other trail systems that allow snowshoers, skiers, fat bikers, and walkers all on the same trails, and they tend to have just like iconographic signs throughout the trail system, just plopped here and there, just to remind people that like don't walk in the tracks and don't ride your bike through the bike tracks. Walk off to the side, things like that. So it just is a consistent reminder, especially if people are coming in from neighborhoods or something like that. Some people may come onto the trail system who may never see the
Yeah, true.
signs of the trailhead because they come in from their own neighborhood. So just having those throughout the trail system that are simpler will just help to remind people what.
Well, we could have one of the scouts actually build some kind of setting where you have all those requirements, when you come into the parking area, identifying what the signs mean, where to look for them, that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
it'd be a nice project.
And one thing is, while you bring that up, being a scout and a scout leader myself, I just want to have people be a little bit cautious about an over-reliance on scouts and what scout projects can entail.
I understand.
Some of the things that mentioned in here would be some pretty ambitious scouting projects, so just
That being said, though,
mind.
we've had some amazing projects done
yeah,
by Eagle Scouts.
yeah, no, there are some.
Yeah, the Eagles are the.
There are some Eagle Scout projects that are huge. There's other ones that are, you know, most of them are like 100 hours of the goal. At least when I was in Scouts, was 100 hours of total group labor time. So when you think about that, it's really not a ton of time.
Right.
So, you know, you're building sections of trails or a bench or something like that, but not building like whole lodges or anything.
I have a question
Just something to keep in
about,
mind.
back on page 6, the very first paragraph says, the existing central asphalt cart path should be made available for individual and family biking and off-foot traffic activities. I thought that that was going to be maintained and just the non-central cart path would be allowed to deteriorate in favor of natural surface trails. I don't think that's clear.
Are the cart paths? I don't know the cart paths really well. Is there like a clearly delineated like central cart path and then like secondary paths off of that? Or-
There's one path that goes all the way around, but there's like offshoots of it all over the
Each hole,
place.
Yeah.
individual holes.
So, I mean, honestly, I see a lot of benefits to having that continuous loop all the way around. I mean, just honestly, like, I walk my dog doesn't get muddy on that.
Yeah.
I mean, if you let everything natural, then you have to deal with mud and, I mean,
The existing paths
there.
are not complete. If you've been out there, you know.
in the
that.
back nine, there is one that's
Yes,
complete.
there's one loop
Yeah,
sort of right
there's
here.
one complete loop.
Help me with that.
That's a good point.
I would suggest that loop probably stays. This is for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's easy to walk, especially when you get to the
There you
change
go.
in grade.
Yeah,
Secondly, the erosion issue is minimized because it's paved and it's not washing away constantly.
Yeah.
Individual holes.
so I would keep that one that goes all the way around, and then the offshoot ones, let those go.
So can we call that the main loop or something, and then all
Yeah.
other
something.
paths or something, say something
Goes down
like
the
that?
12th hole. There's no-
It does.
The 12th?
Well, I mean, it
Well,
goes around the whole
I think
back.
it has an offshoot that goes down.
We walked it that
Yeah, each
day.
hole has its own offshoot, but there's a main one. that
Yeah,
goes
it
around.
There's
does.
one, yeah,
It does well.
continuous.
That's a good point for sure.
Yeah,
It doesn't go up
doesn't-
that fairway
it doesn't-
there.
well, it doesn't follow the fairway, but it's hard to see, but
It's under the trees.
yeah, it's under the trees. You can see
Well,
it.
that's not part of the continuous loop.
No, that's not part of the.
That's an offshoot, right.
I think there was a comment that it doesn't go down the 12 hole.
Yeah.
Stay intact.
That's what I
You
think.
drive on one-way streets.
So the part that is
I
already
think it would
continuous.
be probably
Yeah.
better if the main looped one on the south side, on the south portion does stay intact, just because it's easier to maintain with asphalt than it's gonna be, especially on those hills. It's gonna be brutal on the hills with erosion.
I think.
But you have a group home and a hospice right there at the end of that 12th fairway. If they could get onto that path, that would be great.
That's another good
Well,
point.
actually, it's probably pretty easy. It's just right there.
Yeah, but I
then
think what he's
they're
saying is we need to maintain that one too.
Yeah.
Except for that one
That may be
offshoot.
good, that's not a bad idea.
That's a good idea, I think.
He didn't use the path when he put it out there.
There was some part of the write-up where it talks about access. I don't know
Yeah,
who
there
wrote
is.
that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's the 12th hole. That's the 12th hole.
Yeah.
Do you want to reword that now, or do you want?
No,
do you want
when we
to
get
take
there.
that
We'll get that
offline
when
and-
we get there, yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
No, I'm talking about
Oh,
this
this
part.
thing.
So that one, probably with the exception of the main
Main
circular
loop.
path,
in hole number 12 or something.
The continuous,
Yeah. All right.
yeah,
And hole number 12. In case you want that.
if you want
We're gonna
that
work
little
on that.
shoot.
Or you could put that
We'll put that in
where
the other
crossing,
section. where the-
access or
Yeah, where it
something.
says come in from Huntington Meadow.
So
Yeah.
you could say the intention that the secondary cart paths will eventually deteriorate.
Right.
Yes, that would be good. That would be good.
Typically, you've got primary,
And that
secondary, and
makes sense too,
tertiary
because they
trails.
don't go anywhere, they're all dead-ended anyway, so
Right.
let them go back to their natural state.
Right, no, that's, I think it's excellent.
Yeah, there's no benefit in leaving them
So we're
asphalt.
not adding that extra language, we're just saying secondary to fix that problem? Is that what I'm hearing?
That's what it looks like, yeah.
No, but there's also, we're adding the language with the exception of like the continuous main asphalt path. We're not letting, just to clarify, make it really clear that we want to keep that asphalt.
So the existing central or the existing primary asphalt cart paths to be made available to individuals and family biking. And then the next one, a network of multi-use network trails should be developed on the back nine with the intention that the secondary cart paths will eventually deteriorate back in favor of
Yeah,
natural
I like
service.
that.
The other part of that too is, and later on I make a comment that you identify some areas for like overlooks and that kind of thing, and I know you had a tough time trying to figure out how to convey that because it's not easy to show where they are. But I was thinking maybe we could do another figure, we'll take one of the maps and incorporate that with a figure showing the overlooks and then possibly the one circular sidewalk staying and then the other one's breaking up.
Okay, good.
Even that might be.
I don't remember your overall, so I don't know.
I vaguely remember.
Asphalt cart path.
You just call it the existing perimeter asphalt cart path as opposed to continuous loop.
Existing asphalt cart path loops.
Yeah, would still put primary in there then.
Primary.
Do we want to say as well as number 12, hole number 12?
And that is
That's
the whole number 12.
that's the one we would
Yeah,
want to keep.
That's right.
Plus the whole number 12, yeah.
Because there was a question later on about 12 versus.
At the end of that
Maybe
sentence.
say including hole number 12's cart path or something like that,
So the existing central cart path loop.
We'll put that in the.
to include number,
That's what I would,
Yeah, there's a part in here that has access points, so why don't you put the 12-hole thing in the access points?
Yeah, we could do that.
yeah, just like,
Yeah.
Because
No,
Can I,
that's good.
Come back, this is something that's occurred to me, when we're talking about the back nine and the whole, and we talked a little earlier about preserving the Shadow Pines golf course signs, this same condition. Wouldn't it be nice to have a recommendation that there be a master sign put up, maybe in the parking lot around the clock house, showing the history of Shadow Pines and how it got to become the recreational area we hope it will be.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
Another bullet on the front page. on the
Push a
sign.
button and it plays a video.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
or you could call it on the phone.
Could have a timeline.
No, but you were gonna create that sign section in the front portion.
Right.
Yeah.
We just incorporate that,
Incorporate
yeah,
that.
I think that'd be good.
Yeah, that's,
I think people would like that.
Who would write that?
Mm-hmm. Steve's gonna write that.
I think,
I mean, right, yeah, we do. Some of the language we have here at the beginning of this report, we pretty much track it. It wouldn't be hard to write. We don't want to write a lot because people aren't going to stop and read for a long time. I will if you like. Well, Matt can do it probably as well as Matt.
Jimmy had a suggestion that we remove the whole 12 thing here and include that when we talk about access
Yeah.
further down.
makes more sense. That is an
That's
access,
probably the
not
best
just
place
a.
to-
Everybody good with this?
Yeah. we will include
Everybody's
it in the
comfortable?
access points.
Did anybody have anything else on page 7?
seven?
There's just.
Just the maintenance of back nine cart path should be minimized to allow natural
abbreviation.
surfaces
Yeah.
to return. We just need to clarify that's with the exception of the main cart path.
Redundant.
Or
I think you did
maintenance
that in the first
of
paragraph.
offshoot cart paths or something like that.
That's under constraints?
Yeah.
Primary route.
Makes sense.
We need to talk to the fact of what we said about under constraints, is that what we're talking
Yeah,
about?
that's what.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay,
That's fine.
okay. Primary loop, okay.
Doug, back on page 6, we're making a small edit that Eric and I agreed to. Right there, FWT, probably don't need that.
I just included it because I had included the other.
Yeah, no, just that
abbreviations.
part,
Make sure the period.
because you don't refer to it further down.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Okay.
We have also, though, I think somewhere back in here, made a recommendation that on page 6, first item, the existing central asphalt carpet made available. Modifications may need to be made to the sharp hillside near the creek bridge to increase safety two-way bike and foot traffic. I don't know how that gets interpreted as far as the trail loop. The trail loop would, right now, does not go some other direction, it goes up the hill. And we're talking in that modification idea that we may not go up that hill that way. So-
Oh, I thought it was just making it wider to allow for two.
I don't know about wide it's gonna make.
I don't think you're gonna make that
Yeah,
wider.
no,
Yeah.
water's just gonna make a steep hill wider.
That feels like that's more of like a master plan kind of thing, or even
Yeah.
implementation, because there's a lot
Yeah.
of thought that's gonna have to be put into how to manage that particular
Do you
section.
want to take out that sentence?
Well, I don't know.
No, I think
No,
like, it's
Okay.
more of like kind of a
Suggestion.
yeah
I
suggestion.
think if we open it and say it's open for biking right now, family biking, that's not gonna be very safe for family biking.
So modifications
Oh,
may
not
need
for
to be
small
made
people, that's for
to
sure.
increase safety and take off,
Do you want sharp or steep?
take off everything after shape.
Both, isn't it?
It's both, really.
Yeah, it is, it's both, and it's, you know, it's gonna be,
I know what you mean.
You could just say of trail users.
yeah.
Do they, for
but-
non-paved trails, like hard mountain biking, do they, like, what do they say for trails that are really steep and not safe for young kids? Do they say anything, or they just?
We generally don't build trails like straight up or down a hillside like that to begin with. So, and you generally go a lot slower on a dirt trail than you do on pavement. So,
And they make them black diamonds, right?
How are you, you know, you're gonna be looking at doing some trails over there for other things. How are you going to play with the grades to make them a little less steep than what's out there now?
you build the trail like if you have a hillside, instead of going straight up the hillside, you go across and you just have to cut into the dirt a little bit to make
Oh.
a tread that's like that
Okay.
wide.
Okay.
That's
Switchbacks, right?
bench
Yeah.
cutting.
Like this is straight down, straight
It's
up.
pretty much. I mean, it does have a couple of turns on it, but yeah, it's very steep. Like you wouldn't build a dirt trail like that because water will just
It would
funnel down that and
Well,
it
maybe-
becomes a rut.
Maybe we need signs up for,
Danger.
like, just caution signs that there's a steep grade. You know, if people are on bikes, they might
Well, let me
wanna.
ask this question, because of that grade, and if you have somebody down at the bottom of that hill, somebody comes down it on a bike, they're not gonna be able to control themselves very easily. I mean, you could do it with nobody in front of you, when there's somebody in front of you, it gets a little hairy.
You could make a
Do we not
mandate.
allow biking on that back trail coming down the hill to the
I
bridge?
think it's going to be tough to connect if you don't
Right.
do that. and
That
that's
is the
problem.
connection.
I think that it's a bigger discussion that needs to be had when you start looking at what does the whole trail system look like, and it's not something
I'm
we're going to
thinking maybe
solve here.
and I'm just talking about this one path, I'm not talking about creating new trails, because you can do that with grade change. But I'm thinking maybe you create a new trail to the top of that hill so that you don't go down the hill as part of it. You connect it back at the top of the hill.
Right, we talked about that, but what I think what I was saying is that that's a pretty expensive project. That's the reason we wanted to make sure it's in here. We talked about going a little farther down the creek, you know, after you cross the bridge, going a little farther down the creek and coming
Yeah.
around the
Yeah.
hillside there,
Yeah.
rather than going up the hill.
Right.
It's a-
But again, that's more in the planning of the trail system and the layout of that
Right, that's-
particular trail.
It's kind of down the road a ways, and if we're saying we're opening it for biking now, what does that mean?
Well, I think you could do like a short-term, like, measure where you say, you know, that you have to walk your bike in that area or something, you know.
There's a section
Right.
on the canal path near Lock 32 where you are, it's recommended that, it says slow down now.
Yeah.
Or in Pittsburgh, it says
Right.
dismount and walk your bike.
Right.
Yeah, it does. You can't
Yeah, I
ride
think
in
it means
Pittsburgh.
some special handling. even
If
at
we
the
can't
time
make
we
it
open.
safe for everybody, then we need to make a recommendation that
That's right.
bikers dismount. But
Yeah.
ultimately, you
If
want to
I'm
have a
14 years old, the
continuous.
first thing I
No,
want to do
yeah,
is take my
yeah.
bike down that
Yeah,
hill.
you're in the creek.
But the
Yeah, I
goal
can
is to
do-
create maybe a continuous path that's safe and accessible.
Well, I think you're right. I think that's maybe a dismount area.
That's it,
Dismount, yeah.
Or-
Yeah.
And then when we can create a detour, a dirt path, etc.
And there's a bike
That was
detour.
the first
Yeah.
path creation.
But I don't know that we need to get into that
No,
detail.
I think
here.
we have to do something if we're gonna open it
Yeah.
right away.
While we're on the trail subject, and I raised something that's going to take us off a totally different conversation, but I said I would address it here, so I'm going to. It's been recommended to me by a couple of people now that we take into consideration the fact that ferry houses are being taken out of Tinker Park.
Say that
I'm
again?
sorry.
Ferry houses that are being removed from Tinker Park.
Oh, yeah.
And whether or not we
weekend.
could reclaim those and use those as part of our trails, or put a trail that has ferry houses on it. It is I mean, if you've ever been to Tinker Park with little ones, it's really kind of
Been there.
a very cute, well, it was, a very cute path to walk down, and, you know, every few feet, there were little ferry houses, and some were a little bit life-size, and kids could kind of hide in them and play in them, and it really just kind of became a really fun thing for kids to go and do. Pittsford's reasoning for taking them out is that the trails have basically been worn out because of it. Well, in my opinion, that's why you have trails, but whatever. This is Penfield. So it was just something I wanted to bring up for discussion, whether or not that's an option for the town to look into something like that, if it's even possible, and whether or not we want to.
We do currently have a small, there are a number, I think there's 12 ferry houses here at Veterans Memorial, back
Really?
behind the amphitheater.
Okay, I did not know that.
I'm not up on
You want to
this
add a
ferry
few more to
house
that?
Don't even.
I raised it, it's out there, okay? It's all
I mean, it's in
Are they
it's in
free?
a confined area, but they are back there.
I'm not sure what
Well, there was an-
Pittsburgh's plan is.
There was
for
an
those.
article in the paper today, and they said that they were taking suggestions from other places.
So there you go.
So if you want, if Penfield's interested, they need to put in a letter, I guess. It doesn't necessarily have to be there either, it could be anywhere.
Right, right.
Okay, let's get back.
Moving on.
Page 7, is everybody good with
It's on
page
the
7?
record.
I'll ask you another time.
Good throw there.
That's all I cared about.
You have witnesses.
All right, good.
It's on film.
That's great.
Well, not film, but.
We're good?
Yeah.
Page 8. Does anybody have a comment on page 8?
Yes.
What is it?
Spray park, I don't know that we all agreed that we wanted one.
Oh, it was in there.
I think we did.
We did?
We came to the discussion about that.
It was something that was okay to be considered.
Okay, okay.
I had one comment, and it's just a minor one. It's regarding the ice skating rink, not walled, okay with flooding, parking lot. I'd take out the okay. I'd say supports flooding a parking lot, but the other part of that is, I'm not so certain I do support just the parking lot area, because the parking lot is small to begin with, and if you're gonna go skating, you need a parking lot to park to skate.
Well, I don't think we were talking about the one that's there. I think we were talking about if they build another parking lot for, say, the
Well,
athletic fields.
I
They
didn't
could
have to
make-
put you in that position, although I agree that's how you would do it, but I would say even like a low area that's already out there. Something that you can confine into keeping the water in place and then utilizing it on site. So you could say any, maybe a new area, a new parking area, or an area that has the ability to contain water for a period of time for the use of a ice skating rink. But it gives the impression right now that
I
it's.
think the idea is that
parking lot.
And as long as in the summertime, you can use it for something else.
Yeah,
For
right.
parking or doing
That's the
something.
beauty of it, is it goes away and you're done with it.
Like down at Ellison Park, they have that one parking lot that's kind of in a little bit, bowled a little bit, so it holds the water.
Well, we do that, we have our skating rink, it's not very successful because of the weather. It doesn't stay cold all the time, but we had one. We had one. It just hasn't been successful. So the comment would be, other than parking lot or area that can contain, low area that can contain water for a period of time.
In a designated area?
Or a designated area, exactly.
Or designated area.
Yep.
I think for the spray park, when we talked about it, we said that it would be aesthetically, like, fit in with the landscape. So remember, at the time, my concern was this, like, plasticky park that didn't fit.
The Webster spray park is
Yeah.
Something you said, yeah.
very,
I disagree. I think it's beautiful. The Webster Spray Park.
I think so
I
too.
don't-
I think it's really good.
I don't think it fits at all on this property.
I'm not saying it belongs
like
there,
that.
but I think the Webster, they did a great job. It was there, put in for a reason, and a lot of people love it.
that part I'm not arguing with. It just-
Yeah.
Does it fit in with the open space, the green space that I thought that we wanted? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
How different is it than a playground?
Right.
Yeah.
It's really no different.
Yeah, but in terms of playgrounds, didn't we say that we favored something like a natural playground like Abraham Lincoln or the one at Hadland Park?
Well, you can still do a natural type, I mean, if you go to places like Cape Cod, you get showers, you
Well, I
can
think that's
build
the
a
point,
That's my
right?
point,
You
yeah.
want to make it look as
natural.
Yeah, I don't,
integrated into the
right.
property as we can.
You could
Like,
build
I don't think we want to see a big plastic fire truck there. I mean, that's cool for Webster, but not there. It doesn't fit.
Well, you talk about it later on, so you can make those comments into that as to what the aesthetic should look like.
Well, it is. It's cool for me.
It's at the same time.
It's Fireman's Park, yeah. Makes sense.
Any other comments on 8? All right, we get to 9, and that's where spray park is, so that would be an area that you might want to make a recommendation.
Oh, that's where I was.
Oh, we didn't get there yet. We're still on
Sorry.
it, but-
I thought that's where we were.
But
We were
that's where
talking
you
about
want
the
to make the
ice skating rink.
recommendation.
Well, do you want to add detail to playgrounds then as well?
Yeah, we probably should. Because that's what we talked about.
What happened to the zip line that we were gonna put in that playground? We were gonna put a kid, no, we had a
Yeah,
kid's
we
zip
did.
line. yeah.
That's right, we did
Steve had a
talk
place
about
in
it.
Washington. that had
Yeah, a
kid's
kiddie zip
garden. We
line,
all thought it
right.
looked pretty good, I thought.
I think that's fine.
So we want to make comment to the aesthetics and
Yeah.
also
Playground.
a designated area. Does anybody else have comments on any of the other components on page 9?
Yeah, I think I do a couple of quickies. We're talking about athletic fields, the initials PR, which I take it to be Penfield Rec, up here, but I think that's confusing. I think we can write it out. And then, currently, let's see, the town, yeah. Currently, PR lacks areas for new fields. I thought after the word currently, the word should be the town. But, all right, so let's do that. PR should be spelled out, what we mean.
Yeah.
Under athletic
And we
fields?
should be, clarify that we're talking about the town lacks areas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd say the
Kelly's right
town.
though, it is defined up top. Penfield Recreation is defined.
But yeah,
in the
I
first
think that's
sentence.
what it means. That's
Oh,
what I
yeah,
think.
it's
It says it in the first line.
Yeah, I know, oh, okay.
So PR is
You think
just,
it's,
and we
oh, I'm
defined it
sorry.
as PR.
I withdraw that. Okay, you're right, you're absolutely right. Yep.
Anything else?
Nope.
I thought that was a bigger number than I expected, frankly. Really, you thought so? I don't know, I don't have any kids that are in sports at this point, so I take away from my.
It's because they're so overused.
We had a discussion one night about, was it an acre per field, and 10 acres we would commit to athletic
okay.
fields, I think, yeah.
You're needed.
Yes, yeah, no, I gather that there's,
Yeah.
people got together and said, we need it.
So just for comparison, there are 5 at Greenwood Park. So are we talking double the space of Greenwood Park is okay with this committee? That's what it says, 9 to 10.
Well, we discussed that one
1, 2,
night.
3, 4,
Yeah, there's-
5.
There are 2 that
Yeah.
go this way, 2 that
right.
go this way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's more than I thought we talked about, but
Yeah,
I thought we were saying like 4 to 6.
Is this 9 to 10 saying the whole town or for
No,
this?
No,
here,
for this.
then here.
I was thinking it meant the whole town.
What did you say, up to?
I talked to Jeff before the meeting. We were talking about the athletic fields. I know you had a conversation with Chris, so maybe you can chime in a little bit about what your conversation was about.
Well,
Because I know it's needed.
yeah, the thought is, from a future use standpoint, if you use Greenwood as a perfect example of the thought of, removing the fields from that location, you'd obviously have to find a place for upwards of 5 or 6, and those 5 fields that are at Greenwood now for like the PYL group, that's their really minimum amount of space that they need, and that's just from the boys' side. So you roll that over to the girls' side that has to share space at Rothfuss. We have to juggle between lacrosse and soccer and start time. So you really probably are in that 7 to 8 fields easy. And if you're looking at trying to have fields able to be able to rest fields and be able to take fields offline from season to season,
So
can
what
get
would
to
you,
10 pretty
what would you
easy.
do at Greenwood? Would you just make less fields, bigger?
Actually, you'd go back to what that park was originally designed for, to be a passive park.
Yeah, it was not designed for public use like that.
There's not nearly enough parking there for anything.
No, it was never designed to be
It
that.
wasn't, truthfully, it wasn't designed to have 5, lacrosse fields on it.
Right,
And the way
okay.
lacrosse is growing, they're gonna, already maxed out with the number of fields that are there, so.
So where is the statement in the athletics section that we say, okay, you could use the space for athletic fields, but we prefer that you maximize the use everywhere else
Yeah.
before here?
That was in the beginning.
That was on page 8.
It's on the front page still too, actually, in the executive. summary.
After exhausting resources in other parks,
Yeah.
okay. Okay, it's there. It is not repeated in the athletic fields. It looks like, if you just look at that paragraph, it looks to me like we're saying, you can put 9 to 10 fields there.
I agree.
And I'm
Yeah.
uncomfortable with that.
Yeah, I agree. I think we need to say how many fields we want there, not the number of, that would be for optimal current needs of future growth. I think we need to say the number that we want there.
From a future planning standpoint, that's just a tough sell to be able to know, growth of a sport like lacrosse or PYFC, what their future needs may be. What they see now in the next 2 or 3 years may change up or down in regards to the number of fields. I mean, PYFC is a good example. Their space was always sort of, I'll say,
What's
sufficient in there as
PYFC?
well, but now that they're at the
PYFC?
Penfield Youth Football.
And cheer.
In cheer, sorry. There used to be able to be, I'll say self-contained at Harris Whalen, but now that the school district has built their facility, they've been able to sort of absorb more of their field time, so it's lessened the need for use at Harris Whalen. So what we've done is we've shifted some of that use at Harris Whalen over to the soccer club. So this year, we're going to use that space instead of football, we're going to use it during the summer for a soccer field. So it's just a matter of moving fields from one location to another.
So do you want to reiterate that statement in the athletic field section? Is it comfort level? Or
I
is it
think that's a good idea. And I also think we need to say how many fields that we think is appropriate for this property.
We kind of did say 9 or 10.
Well, I don't think we have agreement on that.
Well, then we should vote on that or something, because there was a discussion going back, I don't know, to the second or third meeting, I think, where we
Already
talked about
discussed
how
it.
much space we would
Right.
attribute to it or allocate to it, and we were thinking on the north side, up towards the Atlantic Avenue area, and we said, well, we thought 10 acres. That was not my suggestion, but I recall that
Just so
conversation.
everybody knows roughly, and again, don't quote me on the exact numbers, but a full-size field is typically about 1.5 acres. It's actually a little bit under that, is typically what you'd plan. So if you said 10 fields, you'd be looking at about 10 acres, give or take.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
that's
sort
You're
of the way
talking
the
about the open area along
Especially since you
Atlantic.
need room between them. That's half
Between-
the,
It's
I don't know
road and
which
the
side of the
right
tree,
side.
which side of the
It's
tree
like
line.
1.3
The north
acres, so
side
if
of
you
the
Well,
do
I
an
know,
acre and a half,
but-
you've got a little
Inside.
buffer.
I-
So an acre and a half,
I
you're
guess-
talking
I guess-
15
call it
acres
out.
then for 10
We didn't
fields.
say.
I'm suddenly realizing that if we inspect 9 to 10 fields, we basically change the character of the thing
Yeah,
pretty radically.
right.
Plus the parking lot to support it.
Wait a
Yeah,
minute,
yeah.
Jenny just had a good question. Are we talking about north of the tree line? Can you put fields in there
We're not
between?
recommending anything in this.
Yeah, I was-
No, I mean, but is that usable or not? Because there's
Yeah,
several
that's a
acres
lot of
there.
empty space, it's not gonna be
Well, I
used
When we were
for anything.
discussing that could be the parking area, because we wouldn't want the kids that close to the road with their field.
Yeah.
But if the parking came in from Whalen, and then that's
But
where they park.
You can't park there, oh, the buffer's not up there, is it?
No, there's no buffer.
There's
across
no
the top.
buffer up
Yeah,
there.
you can park,
You can park there.
yes.
Right, so that's 5
Oh, wow.
acres.
We weren't going to get into the nitty-gritties of planning the
That's right,
site.
We really aren't supposed to.
really are
We've
getting
got a detail like 9 to 10 fields in here, which is nitty gritty.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
in that same paragraph, we say the committee does recommend athletic fields for the property. So if you take that, it sounds like we're saying, yep, we recommend athletic fields for the property, and the optimal use would be 9 to 10 fields. And I think that's
Yeah.
gonna take all of that northernmost hole, and where does the cart path go through there, and what does that mean for continuous use, access, handicap accessibility, et cetera.
What
Somewhere else,
about the old hole 12?
somewhere else we say that we, expect that every other site will be explored
Yeah,
first.
it
but-
does get mentioned, it does.
But then that gets lost here.
Well, we just reiterated it here. And while we're on the topic, didn't we talk about, at one point in time about having a field that kids could just go to and play? It wasn't necessarily
one of the fields near the pavilions or
identified
whatever.
standard athletic field, it was just a place you
It
could.
wasn't marked out as just an
Right,
area.
it was just a place you could go play.
Right.
You've got that now, and well, if
That's
it's,
where the
if it's
last
mowed.
page says, and have someone advise you, have somebody come and advise us all about what to do.
Well, we have a problem here. Are we gonna,
Yeah.
9 to 10.
I mean, why don't,
Why don't you just
Maybe
strike
we-
the number
Do
from
you
the
need to put a
sentence
number in there and just say exhaust other options first, but
and then discuss it as
And
needed?
not dominate
Well,
the,
yeah, as
not dominate
needed.
the landscape.
I have a feeling there's some of us who don't want to see any athletic fields there.
Penfield Recreation
But
Association.
that's not all of us,
The number of
But that's
fields
not
needed.
all of us.
because I would like to see some fields there.
We've had this discussion already, and now we're visiting it again.
Yeah.
We have had the discussion already, and we already
And
decided
that's
it.
why it ended up in the recommended portion of this proposal, because we decided that if we wanted it, we needed it. We had a very long talk about this several meetings ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember it. I just, when you sit down and you say 10 fields, 1.5 acres each, that's 15 acres. If you have another 10 acres for parking, that's 25 acres. That's huge. That's a lot of space in that north property.
10% of the whole property.
10% of the whole.
Of the whole property and 20% of the north. And who knows if you can even put it in that area. So I feel like it needs,
Or for current use.
it just needs boundaries, like it can't take up more than such percent, or I don't know.
and that takes out the number, and then obviously
Yeah, I
we
was gonna
have
say, just take out the numbers, we'll work with the PR people.
future master plan and
Yeah.
The number.
town development, at least that leaves it open for future.
Maybe you could have a few fields that are not actually next to each other, they're kind of spread out so they're not just massively just taking up the whole area.
Yeah,
How do you manage
You know,
that
if you go
for
back to that
parking?
tall
I heard
zone,
somebody say
Yeah.
12 full, right?
yeah, that
maybe
could
maybe
be
you
a good
have one
spot.
there or
You
something,
could put
and
two
or
fields
there,
side by side.
and maybe you have
12
two
full.
somewhere else, and who
Yeah.
knows?
How many acres are on the north side?
On the north
Can
side?
you just throw a bracket around it?
You've got about,
There you go.
100?
We knew, we had that, we talked about that the night we had that
The
discussion.
whole north side?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of wild.
it's just, the north- yeah,
53
because that's the area where you would have the
47,
athletic fields.
53,
And that-
But you can't go with that 105.
It
to
picks up the
across
property
the
across
street.
I'd like to get a sense
Oh,
of
right.
what proportion of that space we're talking about. What is 10 acres or, yeah, you're right,
So
there,
that area right
Tricia.
there is
It's- When you
53,
add
that
parking,
northern
it's,
portion.
you're talking 25 acres and,
Yeah.
Can we put athletic fields in the buffer zone? That's not a,
You could put fields, you just can't build any structures or parking lots.
no parking.
right, no parking, yeah, but we
Yeah, you
could
could
put
have
the
the
parking
field.
lot the other side of the buffer
94,
area.
so 25 acres
give or
is,
take.
you know,
And
a
that's,
quarter of it.
Maybe a thing you could do with the,
so you're talking about
They go
20,
the
you're
hiking
talking
trail
about
on the
20% of
north
that
side.
acreage being devoted.
25%.
25% of that, a whole quarter of that going to athletic fields. And of course, there's some areas like the big tree stand up on the north end that's probably 20 acres of trees that, so you're really gonna have, if you put, I agree with Tricia, if you put 10 fields in there, you've pretty well done it.
That's half of
That
You're not-
really changes
You're not gonna have a lot of hiking,
property.
you're not gonna have a lot of
What's down on
hiking.
that 12th hole? What did you got there for acreage
didn't
and
that-
buffer and all that?
The whole 12th hole or
No,
just?
just that.
figuring?
just right there.
I think the buffer goes almost to the fairway.
Really?
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
200,
but they
the
need a
200
buffer
foot
zone.
buffer?
It's only 7 acres, 7.5 acres.
Oh, that.
But if you could, I mean, if there's going to be fields, you could tuck them in so they're not all with
Yeah.
each other where you create this complex.
Parking area on that then. We're master planning right now.
So
That's
we're
the
getting a
bottom
little-
line.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
How would you access that?
And I don't think you should say 9 or 10 fields. You should just say fields that.
I agree. Get rid of
Maybe
the nine to
maybe
10.
we bound it by saying that we don't fundamentally change the character of the land or property or something like that, so it doesn't turn into this athletic complex in the front 9.
Yeah, they should be placed on the site so as not to alter the character of the park.
Yeah.
Properties.
Something like that, yeah.
Well, I kind of think we could be a little stronger though, and be a little more precise in what we don't want. Because I mean, when you're talking generalities like that, it's so easy to transgress it.
We could have this discussion about any one of these topics, and I'm sure all of us would disagree completely on every one of these
some
topics.
section of it, right?
You know,
I think that we are really,
Some limits on
we're
it.
getting really deep.
And we're
into
not
weeds
making
on
the
this.
master plan, we're only suggesting what our suggestions are.
And at the end of the day,
Our
the town's gonna
recommendations.
do what the town's gonna do. And we need a
Yeah, but I can't support a recommendation of 9 to 10 fields. That's, you can't
We
support
can take the
that.
number
I
out.
took just took the number out.
gone.
The number is struck. Committee recommends working
But
with Penfield Rec to determine.
Does that need to be a determination with more than just Penn Rec though? Is there?
Well, the town would make the decision. Penfield Rec would only recommend to the town, and then the board would make the decision.
I mean, Chris, you have some kind of rec thing that you're putting out that will include what you are anticipating your need of
You mean the master
field.
plan?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so there you go. You have it in there. Just get rid of the number and let it go.
No, I'm gonna dig my heels in a little bit. I think it does need to have a boundary about, we have boundaries on using other properties first. We have boundaries on making sure the spray park fits in with the aesthetics. We have boundaries on the playground fits in with the aesthetics. We need to have a boundary on the athletic fields to say that it can't, however you said it, Jim, that it,
Yeah, I like what you
So as not
said.
to alter the character of the original space.
yeah.
I just added that in here.
Do we want to add an upper bound on area, like 10 acres or something like that?
It doesn't matter, because the town's gonna do what they wanna
The
do.
recs.
Like, as part of the
Yeah,
recommendation.
but this is our recommendation.
I don't agree with that recommendation.
Yeah, we don't wanna, it
I'm just
doesn't need
We
to
want
turn into,
sporadic fields to be placed
yeah,
throughout the property in such a way that they don't,
that they fit in.
yeah.
Yeah.
You just say you don't want an athletic complex. You are looking for.
Yeah, I'm fine with saying that. We should not, we don't want it to be an athletic complex.
Don't say building.
The idea
The
of,
use of the
Because
land.
now you're giving the impression there's a structure being built.
Yeah,
That's not what I
right,
mean.
right.
Not supports
Just thinking
the
of
idea
field
of
after
use
field
of
after
the
field.
The idea.
yeah.
I'm sure I'm in the minority, but I don't agree with that. I don't want the whole property that way, but if the whole north side was fields, it'd be better to have them all together than disrupting the whole property with a field here and a field there, if you ask me. That's just my opinion, but
Well, how many do you think we should have?
I don't know the number. I just think I personally think they should be all together in one place, so there's not a field in a big parking lot,
Yeah.
a field in a big parking lot, a field in a big parking lot.
Somebody that.
Yeah, I agree with Lance.
I agree with that.
I think we just say what we said and leave it up to the town's master planning people
Yes.
who do this for a living
Okay.
to decide where they should go and how many they need. Maybe it's only, for the first 5 years, it might only need one field.
Yeah, you're right.
20 years from now, they may need 15 fields, and that's not gonna be our problem.
No.
It's your document.
I like it the way it is right now.
Well, let's go around the table. Where are we?
Let's see, wait a minute.
All right, well, I think Lance's point about keeping them together is a good point, and I kind of agree with Tricia, not kind of, I wholeheartedly agree with Tricia, that we shouldn't have too many, we should put, I think, you're suggesting a limit, right? At least I would.
I was
We can suggest.
Well,
a
let's
limit.
do this.
Trying to bound it somehow.
Let's go with Lance's concept of keeping them together, but limiting them to 4 or 5, or
I could
you don't
support
need
that.
10. Because again, you are exhausting other areas before you do this. This is kind of the last.
Right.
It's the last domain before you
15 years from now, they may need 20, who knows?
we're not going to be around to know
But
about
maybe
it.
they don't have, maybe they don't have to be here. They're right.
And that's why we're saying exhaust everywhere else first.
You want
But
kids of that age.
They've got some space out east. Sherwood or something.
I mean, I could support,
if we say 4 or
Up to
5, who knows, they
5.
aren't gonna go, well, let's build 5 fields there, where if we don't say a number, they might only put 1 there now.
Exactly.
And then 10 years from now, they might put another one, or 5 years, but if we say 4 or 5, they might say, well, let's build 5 fields there right now.
no, we say up to,
At most.
at most 5. Just to give it a boundary, so it's not, fields all over the place, and it's also not gonna take up 25% of the front 9.
I think honestly that we should keep it as is, because at the end of the day, if the kids need the field, they need the fields. Why should we take that space away?
When we go back to the votes of like the recommendations, fields wasn't the biggest thing. People wanted it
Actually,
to just
athletic
be-
fields was one of the most topics
Well, the
that people
biggest
asked
thing was
for.
not to have houses on it.
That was the big thing, and then on the sheet, athletic field was in the top
The
10.
big issue is going
Well,
to be when all of us who voted are dead and gone.
Here somewhere.
There's a whole bunch of people that don't want to.
Everybody's got a sheet somewhere.
I think the top thing was just
Was
leaving
trail, and
open
then
space.
athletic field.
12
Athletic field's 12.
That was a big,
Out of,
that was a lot of people.
okay,
Three-
well, compared to 62
356.
saying walking, running, hiking, rollerblade paths.
When they don't, they're two different things.
It was the same as mountain biking, no, it was less than mountain biking, same as,
Yeah, but you can't go by that. This is a static moment in time
Yeah.
for 12 people.
Right.
It's
Just
what's
the people
happening
who showed
over
up for the
a
meeting.
20, 30, 40-year period that makes it
their
different.
playgrounds.
Copy of it, thank you.
But this
I think-
is our recommendation,
I think we
so
should take off where it
say what
says
we
the number
want.
of fields.
Yeah, I don't think we know enough about the number of fields. I think it's important to capture our goals about the property, which are to maintain it in, as, I guess it doesn't say it, but like, as open a space, a green space. And we've got it captured in there that we exhaust other ideas, but recognize that the town, this is the town's property, and if 20% of the town's population has kids that are, you know, in the
Or-
3 to 15-year-old, I don't know what the demographics are, but it may be that we do need it at some point. I just think that saying a number seemingly arbitrary,
It is arbitrary.
maybe it's
right?
based on Penfield Youth Lacrosse's needs because that's what, you know, Jeff Taddeo was representing, which is appropriate, but
I think he was trying to get it from a larger scale. I will say, the conversation that he had with me, what his thought was try to capture, not only from a lacrosse standpoint, but from the other locations that we have, the shortcomings, and then the bigger piece, being able to rest fields, rotate fields,
Yeah.
so that we don't have goal mouths constantly being worn out, et cetera. So I think, while, you know, obviously his background being on the lacrosse side, I think ultimately it was all encompassing between, you know, any rectangular field. I think even in there, he even mentions, I think I read it in there, that he mentioned field hockey, you know, for
Yeah, it says field hockey in there.
So,
So it's lacrosse, soccer, and field hockey.
right.
I just think that the individuals, I'm not informed enough to say what that space can support, what we need, and that's gonna be up
That's
to
the
the,
next group, that's that next master plan.
That's right.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, that's,
so,
I think that wording does it.
I said, but I don't think we need that sentence about the athletic complex, because it doesn't matter what we think.
Where's the,
Support the idea.
I
of
like that
athletic.
oh.
sentence.
I don't know what that means.
I think everything else looks good, and taking the numbers off looks good. I just don't think we need that sentence.
I don't,
What's the group's consensus?
I don't know what the term is.
I agree with Lance.
so yeah.
And you
I'm
can
ambivalent.
interpret athletic complex as many different things.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Like lights, no lights, I mean, it's,
I would have thought it was a building, so
Yeah,
I'm not
right.
sure. I'm,
Now, there are like parks around the country that are just like turf complexes that are open
Yeah.
air for
Yeah,
large
with-
events, and they are lit fields usually, but
with
it all depends on
fences
where you
and
are.
all kinds of stuff.
Is there an industry
Not
term
always,
for that,
but
for what that is? Or is it-
Typically, it's a field complex.
so,
You could say athletic field complex or strike the sentence. It's really, what's the general consensus here? I mean, you guys are going back and forth on a lot of things right now.
I think that we're kind of redundant in saying that, because we've already said any field should be incorporated that do not alter the character. I just think that's
Yeah, it is
redundant.
redundant now to mention it, yeah.
That's also a pretty
Make sense to say it.
subjective statement, though.
Right.
I mean, who's going to decide whether the character is being altered? I'm with Lance that I would prefer to see all of it concentrated so that we don't have to add multiple parking lots. and-
Agreed.
Yeah, I agree.
So maybe something to that effect would be good in here.
I don't know, what's the harm of leaving that sentence in there? How does it hurt it? What's the risk?
Grammatically, it's redundant. That's,
I don't see it that way.
It's kind of ambiguous, because you don't know if you're
Yeah.
talking about fields or buildings or.
yeah, that's right.
You gotta clarify it.
no definition.
Or if you write another sentence to the effect that, what you're really looking for is you don't want to see a large quantity of that area being devoted to athletic fields. You know, you're tolerant of something happening there, but you don't want to see a majority of the area or a good portion of the area
Say dedicated.
being utilized or dedicated to,
Large scale
Large
athletic
scale
field
athletic-
We kind of are saying that when we say
Yeah.
all other areas should be exhausted before using this area. So we already said that.
Complex that's like.
That's why-
you know, a
that's
bunch of
why
fields,
it's,
but you could also have like a
redundant.
total sports experience that people are thinking
Right,
about, where it's
yeah.
a building that has,
Yeah.
so like a
It-
large scale field, athletic field complex, or
I think that's
athletic
more we
field
should be going
complex.
to.
Yeah, that's fine.
It's kind of ambiguous right now as to what we meant.
Just say like large scale or,
You're gonna wanna cut down those trees up there to put athletic fields in.
Right.
Those trees are gonna go.
Or not.
And
Unless, you know, I
Some
don't
point
A
know.
lot of those trees have to go. If you walk through there.
they fall by themselves.
I was gonna say, at some point, all trees
Those trees
go,
aren't
so.
living
I know, but they can, but trees can be replaced
I think
also.
we need like large scale.
That's my
just to
theory. Any
give
tree
it
we take
a
down, we
little
should
more
plant another one in a
definition.
better spot or something.
Yeah.
That's my theory.
Yeah.
You say that?
Like,
Every tree that gets cut down, there should be another one
Oh,
planted.
yeah, I've seen pictures.
maybe even like large scale
The old
with,
pictures show.
I used to play it.
Well, that's the other thing, you
Perfect.
lighting fields, it takes away the care, and I'm sure the neighbors aren't gonna be happy about it.
right,
Well, we gotta move on though. Is it, we got that
Yeah,
yet?
let's get moving here.
So what are we gonna do with that thing? Do we all agree on
Take
that
the
sentence?
apostrophe out of the bits.
What
Done.
did you say?
Oh my goodness, Eric.
It wasn't in my
Done.
version, Eric, just so you're not.
Oh, no.
Oh, we better for the last hour.
Just
came 5 minutes earlier.
We're talking about athletic fields.
We just fixed it.
Comments on page 10.
the new English.
You could have been here to support me. You could have been here to support
I
me,
think we
Jeff.
should move on.
We're on page 10 now.
Page 10.
Fields ever, anywhere.
Don't tell him that. It's not always for Thursday.
well, we've got the number in land uses, minimum of 9 fields is recommended, I think that needs to be struck.
Yeah, true.
My point exactly.
All right,
People are not supportive of it.
we are now on page 10.
Right.
So the minimum of
10
9
shall be the
fields.
number. The number shall be 10.
Yeah, I think we just strike that part out.
Right.
Yes, that's, I think that's much better than
Well,
that.
we're on it again, so now's your chance. We're talking about it again.
So what did you say, Jeff?
I'm confused as to why the wording of after exhausting every other option in Penfield, where is that and why? I guess I don't understand that. You know, when I did this, we looked at the first recommendation, when the first group got together, was for athletic fields. That was one of the primary things they talked about. It's wide open space, it's green, it allows you to do winter activities as well as the fields. So I guess I just don't understand why we always say after exhausting all other fields. I mean, it sounds like to me that we don't want fields here, which to me it fits everything that we're looking for from the fields, from this, what we're trying to do.
There's a lot of people that don't want fields on the property. I mean, they're from when we had the live session here, and from things that I hear through different venues, that they want it to be left as close to as is as possible and put trails on it for people to walk. So the idea of fields is not something everybody wants.
I'm not saying everybody wants, I mean, nothing
I
here
don't
is
even think
everybody
it's the
wants.
majority. I don't think it's even the majority.
I
that-
think you might be wrong about that because the majority of people in Penfield have kids and a lot of them play sports. And every parent I know that has kids complains about the number of fields in Penfield.
I'm just saying from my experience that that's not what I'm hearing.
I think that the objection was dictating in the report a recommended number of fields that by the letter of the law, 9 to 10 fields, it sounds like we recommend 9 to 10 fields on the property. And when you look at the north section of the park, it's 94 acres. 10 fields would take up a minimum of
25.
13 acres plus parking. So the idea that you were taking up to 20 to 25% of the front 9 for athletic fields, and necessarily removing trees, etc., that seemed problematic. And so removing the reference to the exact number of fields, but allowing the Penfield Recreation Master Plan to dictate what was needed. It's not, we do say exhaust all other uses, and then we say in terms of athletic fields, consult with Penfield Recreation, and that it does recommend some athletic fields for the property, etc. It just, the idea that taking a quarter of the front 9 for athletic fields might...
Well, it's also for snowshoeing, for cross-country skiing, it's open green. I mean, it's not just athletic fields. You go over to Greenwood, and it's not like fields are the only thing Greenwood is used for.
That snowshoeing's in the wintertime, but in the summertime, you would have a quarter of the property taken up by fields and parking lot.
Well, it'd be taken up by green space. It's taken up by open green.
But it's not available for people to hike on or walk on
Sure
or
it
have a
is.
trail on.
It's
Not really.
It's
Not if people are
natural.
playing
I think
sports
Well,
on
it's
it.
not natural, of course, but people don't play on Greenwood all day. I mean, it's definitely
And the
not.
trails could go around the field, so that you could still do the trails as as people were doing that. That was our initial thought.
It's, what I heard the most of is leave the property as close to the way it is as possible. And I have not heard, I think having athletic fields is fine, but I think it needs to be not taking over the front 9.
There's the other aspect of, up at Atlantic, there's no buffer, but all along Whalen, there's a buffer, 200-foot buffer zone, so it means you can't put a parking lot in there. And you're probably not going to want the field right up against the road, I'm not sure.
Correct.
So
Again, that's where the
you're
town
gonna
and
be
the national
having-
planning, and I have no problem taking off the number of fields. I mean, when we were here before, I remember we took a square to say, this is the amount of
We
space.
said 10 acres, but then we're
I think
thinking,
it was
well,
15 when we did the square, we pulled it over, it was 15, and we said, wow, that's not much space at all.
Yes.
We didn't take into account any parking.
and the parking was,
Well, parking, I mean, there's
We
other
have to
ways
have
around parking.
anyways, though, don't we? For pavilion and hikers that come in, and,
Well, it's not the same as when you have
I mean, we have to have parking.
a couple
lots.
hundred kids playing sports there.
And the parking lots could also turn into the parking and the ice skating rink at the same time for the winter.
yep.
You know, and
Again, I think if you're not looking for a number, I think we're pretty much,
I think
I think
my
we're pretty much there.
my biggest thing is after exhausting fields at other parks first. To me, it's,
I think that was,
if this works for the town, then it's up for the town and the planning to say yes or no. I don't think we have to exhaust every other option in Penfield before to me, it sounds, we're making it sound like this is not something we want on this property, but
Anything
we
we
can't
struck
have
from
it.
this
That's
paragraph
what we're asking the town to look elsewhere
Then
first.
take off the numbers, but, and I also say take off the after exhausting other fields.
It's already it's in the front of the section.
Yeah, we said it earlier, I don't have a problem with putting that part in,
I think it should be off period after the exhausting of other fields.
I thought that was something that we had agreed
Yeah,
upon
we
as a
did agree
group
to
when
that.
were
Yeah, we
going
had
through
agreed
the
on that,
list.
so that's staying in.
I think that was part of deciding
It's really redundant.
how many fields to build, was the idea. That after looking over all the other fields and exhausting the possibilities of moving all the teams, as I think Chris discussed, we then said, assuming that you would use all those in that way, then that tells you, what you would need. And Chris would be determining that and getting it back to the town to determine how many to build to start out.
All right, so that being said,
Yes.
we said we would do everything by majority vote. So I'm going to ask the group to give me a response as to, do you want to keep it the way it is, or do you want to take that out? Let's start here.
I'd like to take out the number of fields and allow Penfield to do
Yeah,
comprehensive master planning.
And the exhausting fields at other parks first?
The
Where
way
is
that
that?
it exists
It's
now.
up in the beginning, yes.
You want to keep it the way it is now?
Yes.
Okay.
Keep it the way
The
it's
way it
written
is
now.
now? Jenny?
sure.
I do, sure.
I'm okay with it the way it is now.
Lance?
I still think
honest.
we should take that last sentence
All
out,
right.
but That's just
Sue,
I think it should be removed.
take it out? Take it out, it's 3.
Yeah.
Take it out, 4,
Yeah, take it out.
Five.
Take what else?
Sorry, taking
What out? What are you taking out?
Take out the exhausting
Leave it up to the town as to how many.
fields and other.
Okay, I'll go with them.
You want it out?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's now we're 5, 6.
Well, I don't say
Now we're 5, 6 and taking it out.
Exhausting.
5, 6 and taking it out?
Yeah, 1, 2, 3.
Leave the other.
You're talking about the one up on top, not the left side.
Anything where it says after exhaustion.
Jeff needs, that makes 11 now.
5.
So there's 11. So
It should be
originally it was
6.
6, 5, now it's 5, 6.
Are we removing
For
it from
removing
the
it.
initial part?
It's 6, it's now 6-5 to take it out.
Okay, yes.
That's what, with Ginny
Yeah,
jumping in.
that's
It's
correct.
now Ginny,
No, I'm for leaving it in.
yes, you are.
Yeah, okay.
It's Ginny, Lance, Sue's 3, just 4, 5, 6. So it's 6,
So it's
5.
taking out the,
After
after exhausting fields of the park first.
It should come out of the top as well.
Yeah, come out of the top as well.
Just let you know, don't come here late.
No doubt.
You might lose
Is that
something.
is it in 2 places in the document?
Well, you know, if we take it out,
Okay.
it does not mean that there can't be any.
Correct.
We
Well, it may
just-
not be the right place
we
at this
just
point in
don't
time. You
address
might want to
that.
put them other places.
Right, I agree. I just think it makes it sound like we don't want it there, and I just think that's,
Yeah, you're right.
we're allowing it, if the town wants to do it there, we're saying fine. Yeah.
You know, these are recommendations, everybody.
Right.
Can we move on,
Yep.
please?
All right, good enough. On to page 11. There were no other comments on 10.
You skipped 10.
Yeah.
That was 10.
No, it
That's a
wasn't.
9.
I'm sorry,
No,
we
sorry,
were on
we went to
It's
10 and
number
then we moved
page
back.
10.
There's a very
All right, so
important
now we're
topic.
back to 10.
Bathrooms.
Well, I have one quick
Yeah.
comment about the top here. Do we need the list at the top as well as the,
Actually,
you know, the
for
headers?
No, I
for
thought we
format
took that
purposes, I
out.
think we took it out, and I think I left it in by accident. So that really
Okay.
should all come.
That all disappears.
Yes, that whole entire thing needs to come.
Including
No,
description
except for
land use?
Yeah, that whole,
No.
that whole top part
Just
comes right out.
spray park through orienteering.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, those each have their
All right,
own.
you had a comment about restrooms? Somebody-
No, they're just that we need to cover it,
It was a joke.
Oh,
because it's important.
they're out
They're
there.
super important.
Just trying to move on.
All right, any comments to 10?
These photos could be made a little larger if you just click on it and pull the corner. I think they're a little, you could enlarge them, I think. I
We'll do
would,
that later.
I would suggest enlarging them a bit.
I love you, Bob.
Okay.
All right.
You just
And I
click-
will.
You just
All right, page 11.
stretch them a little.
I was trying to get them, they were jumping to the next page.
Anything on 11?
The problem, when you open it up, it does pop a lot bigger.
Yes.
Where do we refer? Oh, okay, sorry, you got it, forget it.
Okay. Any comments? Page 12. Camping sites.
Oh, yeah.
Well, did everybody see the letter that,
It wasn't forwarded to the group, it is.
Oh, it wasn't?
It's in the folder though, we can pull it up if you'd like.
let's pull it up.
The three of us that worked on facilities determined that we were opposed to having camping and would like to see the site
Well,
closed.
Mark Soden, who's a Boy Scout leader, sent an email to you.
That's right.
And I want to just go over it real quickly with you.
I guess that's how it got there, because it isn't on our master list of,
All right, so just take a minute and read what he says, and then we'll get into it.
Uninformed, I love that. We love it.
Open fires.
yeah. There's not enough space.
So it's not an issue.
There's not enough space there, okay, good.
Running around naked.
Where did that?
Yeah, what did that?
When did
Somebody must have said it.
Everything's recorded.
Sounds like
Just remember
something
that.
coming over.
Was this like last week's meeting?
Yeah.
Oh, I wasn't around there, okay. Like, I don't remember that.
Didn't make that one, right?
Get on record.
I'm afraid, that was me from my Scoutmaster
So
experience.
I think your comment is well taken.
Yeah,
It is gonna be closed.
Okay.
sounds
Okay,
right.
so just leave it in.
And you may wanna say, we received documentation that indicated that there were other better sites.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wasn't
Right.
necessary. That
Yeah.
supports the.
Can you
initial-
respond to him? Thank you very much.
That was
Or did
very, we saved a lot of discussion time.
Julie,
Yes, really.
All right, anything else on 12?
No.
I'll just say one thing about the area being closed at dusk. I use an awful lot of parks at night. I have young kids that go to bed later and later, and my opportunities to go outside and recreate are
Bring the
typically
deer.
at night, especially during the winter. Saying that, you're going to close something at 4:30.
No, I think the parks are
Currently,
closed.
parks close at 10.
And
Okay.
Yeah.
Dusk is probably
Yeah,
not the
that's-
appropriate.
Yeah,
Okay,
so
not
probably
yet.
say
That's,
10 or
What do we
something.
change it
10
at
p.m.
at
They're
night?
closed overnight.
Yeah,
They're
they are.
closed
Overnight.
10 p.m.
If 10 PM's the norm, just say 10 PM.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not at
Where's
dusk.
that mentioned in the document?
It's under campus. Under campus.
Oh, I did.
Where did we do that?
He does that, we saw his track, right?
I'm sure the bikes are gonna be out on that.
Yeah, in accordance with town, town's
don't put the park word in
Starting
there.
soon.
Park word.
I think the ordinance is actually written as park.
Good. Good.
All right. Very good. All right. Anything else on that page? Very good. Page 13.
Sorry about those T markers. I snapped that photo the other way, and I turned it sideways, so it's perspective screwed up.
For me, I don't know.
Fine to me.
I think they're
Well,
fine.
it's really,
They're fine.
Well, I know,
So
but it
my
looks
only
better
comment
this way.
is, a lot of people don't know, even
That's what I
know there's a community garden over on 5 Mile Line Road. It's not, we don't know this
right.
is Victory Garden per se, do we?
That's what it's called.
Is it called
Yeah.
that? So I'd say, there you go, I don't know. So you may want to say the Victory Garden on 5 Mile Line
Right.
Road.
we will remove
I
those.
think we need to remove
that
that list.
listing,
For
that
consistency's
listing.
sake.
Oh, okay.
Same way we removed the other one, yeah.
Yep.
I think you just need to rework that paragraph as well. I think it just, it's
Well,
this.
wait, Jim, did you jump all the way over to 15 here?
We're at 13.
13.
15.
13, it just
Oh, okay.
references the subcommittee, so I think it was the subcommittee's report to the overall group. I think it just needs to be reworded because it's obviously coming from the committee as a whole, so I think that
Oh,
just
yes.
needs
So
to
just
So
take
why
the
did you
sub
say
out.
the committee?
be. Just say,
You're the committee doing
yes,
it.
you just need to take out the subcommittee references and just kind of rework the tense of who
You're
it's
here,
coming
to
from.
Susan.
Yep,
Yeah.
I'm making changes.
Make it good.
All right. Page 14.
Yeah, well, can I just say right at the beginning, Beth is right, I think it's Clark Road, Meadow, just east of, Clark.
You mean Meadow is Huntington?
Huntington Meadow?
You mean Huntington Meadow, I think.
Well,
No, it's-
right, it's Huntington Meadow.
Is it Huntington Meadow or
Yeah, it's Huntington
High
Meadow.
Because there's High Meadows on the page
Okay.
before. I don't know where High Meadows is.
High Meadows down by Sawmill.
Oh, it is?
Yeah,
Okay.
Arrowhead.
You're talking about the street that goes along there or an actual
I
meadow?
guess he's talking about the road.
The road that goes along there is Huntington Meadows.
Yeah.
Right.
High Meadows is in the back. So
High Meadows is
High
right.
Meadows, that little section.
No, not High Meadow, no.
you meant
Huntington
Huntington Meadow.
We were referencing
Huntington
Huntington.
Meadow, oops,
Huntington Meadows goes down toward Panorama.
must have been me.
Yeah.
Order along.
All right.
And Clark Road, yeah.
Everybody comfortable?
That's good. Yep.
South wrong in that area because I don't know what's east of Clark. I think Clark.
Clark goes with this. Yeah, it's right by you.
Good for
Yeah.
14?
So I'm sorry, the change is now what, Huntington Meadow and just,
Huntington Meadow.
Huntington Meadow and
The-
Clark
the-
Road.
The part like between Huntington Meadow and Mill is going east-west.
We got you covered.
So
Doug, if you
how
just
do
hit
you
that
have east
and
of Clark?
highlight that and hit
East-west.
normal, it'll make it for the style up top. Just click on normal again.
Are those, I'm sorry, are those directions right? Because to me, Clark is going east-west and then it goes north-south.
Well, let's read that again.
So just east of Clark,
Yeah, over there it's south of Clark, isn't it?
yeah, yeah.
No, well, the road goes straight north, yeah, yeah, there you go,
Right,
that's,
so in this area, it's running east-west.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it'd be south of
yeah,
Clark.
yeah.
That we talk about. Yeah.
So it's south.
South, yeah, okay. But I thought my.
And then I would say
guess was
Clark
lower.
Road, just don't leave it as
Yeah.
Clark Kent.
Okay, follow it,
Yep.
Okay, good. Any other comments?
Is that there's the two adjacent properties further east along Clark that extend south, forming an inverted L shape, are in areas with breaks in the woods, but not near the old golf cart paths.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's like near your house, Bob?
Those are the two houses
1935
east, the two houses east of me.
Okay,
It'd be Delella and
Yeah,
Bowen.
which one is yours, Bob?
1935 and
That one there.
1945.
He's
That's
pointing
probably-
Yeah, that one, yeah,
all right, I got it. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
That's Delella and Bowen. Used to be Gardy Odenbach.
Okay.
Everything good?
Webster, I think. Up on the
All right. Page 15.
I just want to say that I'm really impressed with the description of the types of
Vegetation?
lands.
I agree.
Steve?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I
I'm
just wanted
looking.
to compliment you on the
I
research
agree.
that you did for
All
all
right,
of
so what's the
the
question?
types of plants and trees and all of the bushes.
Oh, yeah, yeah, we take it out
Well
if you
done.
want, okay.
No.
It's good.
I might use it for my house.
He likes it. I like it.
He doesn't take praise.
You like it?
It was very well done. I would never have the patience to do that.
I just didn't want to blame anybody for my screw-ups.
It was very well done.
Yeah.
But are they
Steve, it
deer
was a
resistant?
compliment. Stop
Are they
your
deer
head.
resistant? Is the question.
Nothing is deer resistant.
So we're gonna leave it in?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, well, all right.
Then the people reading this thing are gonna think we really know what we're doing.
You want to take out any errors or attribute them?
Yeah, I get rid of it.
Yeah, I get rid of it.
We're
That's gotta go.
comfortable.
Big shoulders.
And delete that statement.
Put my name with that.
And then getting down to the sidewalk access, you talked about suitable for construction or access additional points, 3 places. And then you talked about the 10th hole, and I think it is the 12th hole, isn't it?
Would be the 12th.
Yeah, Whalen
Yeah,
Road is the 12th hole.
I'd have to look at the, I don't have the old golf course
Yeah.
map in
Yeah,
front of me
it
now.
ends up behind the Shepherd home, yeah.
You're talking about right over here,
That's
right?
right, and it's already there.
And a very nice
Well-
gazebo.
My comment was to show that on a map, that figure 10, just so that you have that, we could talk about. That could also be the area where you show the loop road that's gonna, or the loop path that's gonna stay where, in its asphalt state.
You put a figure in here, you mean
Yeah,
an
you got, I
illustration?
think you got 9 figures already, or, yeah, you got 9 figures already, probably just put a 10th one in.
Could squeeze that
We could
in,
look
yeah.
at that.
It's funny, I'm looking at him doing it, I'm thinking you're doing it, it's driving me nuts.
Any other comments on that page?
No.
All right. 16.
Gonna talk about the community garden.
Yeah, can I say something about 16?
Yeah?
Yeah, I missed the meeting when the community gardens got voted in, and then it got signed to me, the address. So, all right, I addressed it. And I wanted to follow the committee recommendation. And I went out to the present community gardens in the park. Who's seen that thing?
Oh, me.
Has everybody familiar with it?
I've seen it,
Yeah. It has a big high fence.
yeah.
On the fence you put little, I don't know, tails and material and.
Keep the birds
Keep the
away.
birds away.
Yeah,
You talk about 5 Mile Line, yeah.
It's really incompatible with everything we're doing here,
It
frankly.
has storage sheds for
Yeah.
like tools and whatnot.
I also made a notation that access to water was gonna be difficult for
Yeah,
anything on
sure.
that site. It would-
Anyway, I got the address from Zach for the lady who runs the thing, Mrs. Bernice or something, and I sent her a question. I said, essentially, I said, why do you want this? And she said, went back and said, we don't.
Oh,
And there you go.
So I think that's really the end of the problem.
Yeah.
So I would just say, take it out. It's a non-recommendation.
I could support that.
Yeah.
Consensus of the group
Yeah.
to
We need
change
to
it where we
vote.
were.
We're striking it altogether.
Very good.
So add that to the not recommended list and we'll just have to
Yeah,
clean that up.
not recommended, but.
All right, anything else on 16?
Oh, by the way, can I just say one more thing?
Yeah.
I went back and looked at the list, I think I mentioned it here, of recommendations, and I found there was one in the community garden. Uno. And I don't know where it came from. Anyway, I don't think anyone can care if it's not here.
No, somebody should.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to ask one thing. What is our description of a few times a season as opposed to periodically? I know a few is usually more than 2 because a couple is 2. So a few is more than 2? That's right at the second paragraph. I don't know if that has any bearing on anything. I was just curious. As opposed to and periodically. I don't know. Just forget I said it.
I don't think it's,
Once a month.
yeah, I don't think we have to specify.
Okay, can keep going.
As needed.
Page
As needed,
17.
yeah.
Anything on page 17?
We could delete the list under facilities, couldn't we? Or,
Yeah, the descriptions all gotta come out.
yeah, all those descriptions.
Those come out also, yeah, okay.
If we take them out, we gotta take them out
Take them
everywhere.
all out.
Oh, wait a second. I think that's our only place of saying that we don't recommend those particular things.
Maybe list them
No,
down
I think this
below.
was just one group, I believe.
You've got
so
commercial,
each
residential, and cemetery
different
down below
one-
for all, me too.
Wait, what?
I would leave them in, I would leave that in
think-
because that tells the story of what.
Yeah. Yeah, because it, like, new community center, Penfield Rec Center, we don't have it listed, and we don't have it anywhere else. Where we listed the actual things that were
It's not in there
suggested.
anywhere, but, yeah.
No,
I
that's
don't
it.
recommend
That one
I
has to
would-
stay in.
I would-
And it's consistent
Just
throughout the
those
rest of
ones right
this, so I think if we list them in each of the
I'm way
subheadings.
up. I'm
Yeah,
on,
we're section above.
We're on the
I'm
next
still on
page.
16, like, right
Right
there.
there.
Right there.
There.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right, that's where I am too.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, from here going forward, each subsection has the listing of all the things that are not recommended.
Right.
So if we're consistent from here going forward, I think it's okay to leave a list.
So all the
Yeah,
things that have been
okay.
denied will be
Correct.
Yeah.
listed. I
Correct.
think that's valuable.
Probably a good idea.
In separate headings. That's correct.
So I wanted to say something about page 17, under the residential development and retirement community part. I thought very specifically we should say, for anyone reading the report, you know, we mentioned infrastructure and school system. I would like to say specific reference to overloaded roads, you know, that are already inundated with traffic, somehow or other, throw that in there, because all the roads around there are just with a
Well, that's what the infrastructure
development and
is.
Yeah,
retirement
infrastructure.
community. I know it is infrastructure, but I'd like to point out very specifically, because people will be looking infrastructure, thinking sewers and gas lines and all that, and not necessarily understand that it has to do with specifically crowding the roads as opposed to building roads.
So if we put parentheses behind infrastructure and say like sewers, roads, et cetera, would
And
that?
I want traffic.
Say infrastructure.
Infrastructure, comma,
It's, well, it says
roads
town's
and-
infrastructure,
and the
but
school system.
she wants to add something
I want to
specifically
say
about
the
roads.
traffic,
Traffic, okay, comma,
specifically
traffic.
about the traffic, because it's
All right, so-
crazy over there.
I'm reading this and I know what you're saying because I've been with you since day one.
Yeah.
If I'm coming in from Florida over the winter months and I'm starting to read this, where did the recommendations come from? Where do we reference where they came from?
That came from the,
I know where they came from, but nobody
in
else
there.
is gonna know.
I had
We gotta
that-
make a
Right.
reference as to where they came from.
We took that
it's
table
referenced
out.
right
I
in
took the
there.
table out.
No.
We had
because I
the
wasn't
Well, you
gonna-
don't even need a table. You just need to know that they came from the public in the
Public
form of public hearings,
Public
emails,
Okay.
wherever they came from. We've got to reference that because nobody knows where these, we just made these up and decided to
Well,
go.
But we
this
say
was-
it in the executive summary. We say that, we allude to that in the executive summary. We actually say that we took into account town recommendations.
All of the recommendations that will follow in
Right.
the report.
Yeah, we talked about the.
I remember
public
seeing that
yeah.
part, but you kind of lose it after page
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're on page 16.
Yeah.
So we should put it right up under land uses not to be considered. Just say these were, make a really specific statement about how these were brought up, you know, or, you know,
Well, they were
listed as
just brought to your
ideas.
attention, no matter
Yeah,
how
brought
it
to our
happened, it just
attention.
happened.
Yep.
Yeah.
These are not things that you just
no,
concocted to
well, I
put
thought
a
we
report
mentioned that
together.
and when we.
You did, but it doesn't hurt to kind of reiterate it at times.
But yeah,
Because now you're talking about the
Page
things that you
16
don't
now.
want.
specifically
And
the
it's not that you
traffic.
necessarily don't want it, there was a whole cadre of people that came and said they didn't want it either. so.
So Doug, a little bit up, we decided to keep the bulleted list.
This one?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah, that will stay. It just becomes bullets.
Yes,
That's a good point, Joe. I hear you.
yep.
I'll add that.
And then they're enhancing the first sentence for Roman numeral 4.
And under,
Right there,
we're gonna
yeah.
incorporate,
What are we adding?
Reference back to the comments suggested through the public information meeting emails, and we've got verbiage early on.
For public comment reference.
Put as a placeholder. we can-
we're gonna add the community garden on the bottom of that list.
Yeah.
I have a suggestion. I have a suggestion about this whole section, land uses not to be considered. I don't think there's a need that we break it into the subsets called facilities, land development, athletics, and just recraft this and save the parts that we want and remove some of the redundant stuff like. And under land development, we could eliminate that listing, but in facilities, we used it because we didn't write an expansion about each category there. But I
Is
don't
there
think,
harm
I
in
don't think
leaving it the way it is?
no, I just kind of makes it choppy to read through. It's-
I think it's kind of nice because you see,
Okay,
it categorizes it instead of like one giant long
all righty.
list.
I'm cool.
I mean,
Just a suggestion.
I'm just trying to minimize work if we don't need it.
I think it might help people to just quickly, scan to something.
Know what.
Passive,
what's under there, yeah.
passive recreation, okay. Yeah, all right. Forget that.
Cemetery, you can put it those.
So at the bottom of 17, there's a little statement that we expect there will be consensus vote in support of the aforementioned rationale, as we do not recommend these particular changes. Don't you want to say there was consensus in support of the aforementioned rationale?
Well, I thought when we voted on the whole report that it was supposed to be consensus. That's what that was referring to.
But that's only, that's for everything, so that should be in like a summary,
Yeah,
not under land
Well-
development.
They should be part of the conclusion.
Right.
Well, yeah, the conclusion was, I mean, there's consensus because you're getting there, you know.
Jim, rewind a second. That's under the heading of implementation. You could probably strike those things. You're not implementing not recommended uses.
Just eliminate that whole category.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, all right. let's go back, let's go back up a second. We got public vote. Do we want to incorporate the word referendum in there again? That's where you've got it throughout the document now.
It's contrary to public comments as opposed to referendum.
Yeah.
All right.
The referendum wasn't on
Yeah,
the cemetery
right.
itself.
Excellent, okay. Anything else on that page? All right, let's go to page 18.
Just say the public
Not gonna-
referendum vote, yeah.
Couple comments I had were the soapbox derby facility, excuse me. And I noticed that, or I inserted towards the end, was too much space on the property. It would be utilized by too few residents. So there was really no benefit to the community at large. It was just a...
Well, it's too late now, but actually, when I heard the guy talking, he said that they would invest dollars in it and put up pavilions and things like that, that we wouldn't have to pay for.
Right, well, we wouldn't have access to it.
Well, they only used it like 5 times a year. The rest of the times the town would be able to use it.
No,
anyway.
because that pavement has to stay pristine.
The pavement part was the only bad part, yeah.
Yeah, that's a trap.
But then you're going back to parking facilities and everything else. I think it was contrary to what you were trying to do.
That's the hard part, because when they have their events, I'm sure it's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people, yeah. I also had, under motorsports, I said the committee does not recommend that motorized vehicles be allowed on the I think we want to talk about for public use. Motorized vehicles for public use on the property, as they are not currently permitted on town property, on other town properties. And then under the driving range, recommends the driving range not be installed. The guy wanted to take out a number of trees, and we may have created a safety factor for others utilizing the park area while he was
Yeah.
operating his business.
I'm sorry, Jim, could you repeat
Say
that?
nothing.
I did not catch that.
I just made an observation that
Who's gonna
he was
tell you now?
proposing to remove a number of trees to accommodate his business. And then he was, there was a safety factor for those utilizing the area, hiking the area, or biking the area while he was operating his business.
Okay.
Yeah.
Your passive recreation, we're missing the reasons for not implementing those last 3.
I think and there's a few more above that that still need to be typed out as well. That's,
I mean, whether
these sections are just incomplete.
Yeah.
We just need to finish them.
We need to
Oh, those aren't
plug a little
finished
more.
yet.
Where would you like the community garden to go? Passive
Could be under
recreation.
that list where the solar was.
Basket.
What was that?
Right in the basket.
In the bumper area.
So we need to work on 18 a little bit. Any other comments on 18?
Well, we need reasons for a description of the off-leash, the no on the off-leash dog park,
Yeah,
conservatory,
That's
and exhibits.
coming.
What?
Yeah, and
Somebody's got
I
that.
think an easy way to fix that is to take the list and move it from 18 to the bottom of 16, and we're done.
I think you need to do something on the references for the tennis courts, skate park, all that.
Yeah, those need to,
Well, Jim, can
those
we
need to
say
be
on the one
completed
thing?
too. That was,
Yeah, that's,
There's no references to why you didn't want it,
Yeah, yeah.
so we need to do that.
So we move it to page 16, bottom of 16, we have references, we're done.
You still have to give reasons for it, there are no reasons.
Yeah, but they're on
Yeah.
17.
Yeah.
yeah, that was
Yeah, you
the
can do
group, I think that was, yeah, me, Jeff,
We took
Kelly,
a short, we took a
yeah.
Yeah,
shortcut.
it's okay.
So,
Anything in the conclusion section?
You want to change the name from conclusion, right?
no, I meant just the other stuff.
I like the
Below it,
one.
I felt like should be up more in the executive summary, but.
All right. Page 19. Everybody comfortable with unanimous?
That's suggested to be deleted on the copy I'm reading.
Well, do you want to keep it or
That's a
not?
question on whether we agree. That's-
Do we all agree? Hold
that
up your
it should
hand.
remain
Raise your hand
forever
if you
a
agree.
recreational space.
With the statement.
Eric?
Yeah.
Everybody said?
It's unanimous.
It should definitely never
Alright,
be
unanimous
commercial or
it is.
residential, that's for sure.
Okay, unanimous, cool.
And then I suggested that we do another figure, and that figure would incorporate the overlook areas that you referenced, the looped road, or the looped path that you were discussing.
And one more thing you mentioned.
That's something you
Sorry,
guys can
Jim, what was
generate?
the figure you were suggesting?
It would be a new number 10.
The access points, and then also you could also add on to that the looped path, that primary path in the back line.
And you guys are gonna provide that, right?
Yeah,
Come
we'll
up with
work on
something,
it.
yeah.
Anything else?
I don't know if the order of that is correct, though.
Yeah, the,
It might have to go up
It's
further.
gonna have
You might have to
somewhere.
renumber it, yeah.
And it should, yeah. If you want to provide it
And then will have to be referenced
to
in
me, I
the
can fit it
document.
in where it needs to go.
I had it referenced.
You have it on page 15 with
It's also all automated, so it would need to
I
be.
did a header sidewalk access on 15. And are there any figures after that?
you don't need to change it here because that can be
Yeah,
automated.
it's
Okay.
all
So,
automated.
Yeah,
Okay.
it'll automatically get.
There was, I think, one final illustration that you had suggested was where is the 12th, it was in the discussion on page 15, you said maybe we could put in one about where the 12th pole versus the 10th pole. Or did I
That's what he's
misunderstand
talking
you?
about, is the same thing with sidewalk access.
Okay,
Yes,
To
that
better
would come
locate
off,
that.
it'll come off by
Okay.
the
got it.
group home there. Does anybody have any comments?
I had one, I've been waiting because I didn't want to get in the middle, because it had nothing to do with any specific thing. And I don't know where we would put it, but maybe in the executive summary or somewhere, because we had a little side conversation about the trees being cut down.
Yeah.
And I think that ultimately, trees are gonna have to be cut down here and there.
No.
I just think maybe we should say in there, one of our recommendations is that any tree that's cut down, a tree be placed in a conducive area, not necessarily right where it was, because maybe that's why it's being cut down. Do we have it? Okay, I'm sorry, I missed it.
Good idea.
I'm sorry, I missed it. I didn't see it.
She snuck it in.
I didn't see it.
I didn't know it was in there either. That's a good point.
Lance is a good point. The thing you gotta remember is, we all remember that as a golf course, that it was, those trees were planted there to accommodate a certain use. Trees are like people, they get old, they die, and sometimes they're in the right spot, sometimes they're not. I agree there should be a replanting policy there of some type. I'm not quite sure where you put them at this point in time. You don't want to put them in areas where they're going to create sight distance issues along the right-of-way. Some of these trees are in really bad shape. If some of you walked out there, I know you've seen them. A lot of them are dying, a lot of them have died.
It looked like during the windstorm, one over by 12, a whole huge tree
Yeah, a
blew down.
Yeah,
There's a couple.
There's one leading into the right-of-way right now. I don't know why it didn't fall, but I'm sure it's geared to do that at some point in time. We're over a period of time, I'm sure the town board is going to be looking at doing inventorying and determining what should be taken down safely to create safe conditions and what shouldn't. But yeah, I agree with you. There should be some planting scheme put together. I don't know specifically where it should be. Maybe we have an arborist come in and look at that.
Where the designers come in.
But that could be a recommendation as well.
It's in there, I didn't realize, I missed it when I saw it. It is
I
in
thought I
there.
saw it in there when I was reading it, so.
I missed it.
Do we also, I don't know if we have anything about safety crossing between the front and back 9. Do we have that in there?
It should be in the general context.
It's not very-
It's nebulous. We
It's
talked
not very
about it,
strong,
but
yeah.
It's not very, it's
Yeah.
not pointed out very
We
well.
glossed over it somewhere.
Can we make it like
Well, you might have to
stronger?
have a traffic safety engineer look at that to determine where the best place is. Probably the best place is where they used to have the golf carts go across, because
Yeah.
it's sight distance both ways. you don't want them at the intersection, that's the
Now you can look
worst
both ways
situation.
better.
Yeah,
A pedestrian activated
Yeah.
system? I
Right in
thought,
front
I
of Bob's
think you
house.
had mentioned it.
Yeah, but
Possibility.
it's still,
Yeah.
it's still not
Do you want to
looking
insert
west
something like that?
because of the
I
hill.
think it's necessary
Cars come up
because
over the
there's
hill,
no,
right?
if we're gonna have a lot of
I
people
bike it.
crossing,
Yeah, there's a
we
bit-
need
oh,
some
you
kind of
do, yeah.
safety
Yep.
kind of thing there.
Yeah, but it's
Like our buttons.
So what
awful
language
when
would
you
you
get
like?
to the stop sign, you can see everything.
Just give me some context and I can work with it.
It's like 9 o'clock.
You just want
My
to
brain
say,
doesn't
you want
work.
a safety, you want like a safe
Pedestrian
crosswalk between.
activated
Yeah,
crosswalk as recommended.
Okay.
Like,
safe crosswalk.
pedestrian, well, how do you say it? Pedestrian button
Can you repeat that,
access?
A pedestrian walkway, a pedestrian activated walkway
There you go.
is recommended.
Should that go with the access points?
Yeah, I feel like
It should be,
it's,
yes, you're right, it should be part of those access
Yeah.
points.
Specifically to link the two courses we're talking about, right?
Maybe we'll take a look, maybe we'll just throw together a map
Wherever
identifying where the
necessary.
old car path was, in addition to where they're coming out from the other areas that you've talked about.
Because as Bob said, you have that hill coming up there just
Right.
before.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got
Yeah.
just all sorts of things.
yeah.
Jim, that figure you're gonna add that shows the overlooks, will that have the old golf holes on it? That might be
Well, I think it's the
helpful.
one that shows the, can you go to the,
If you
where
could
it
use,
shows the path areas?
because where we make reference to the golf holes, that would be
overlay
helpful.
map
The overlay map that you have?
From the GIS viewer that had the red paths.
Oh, yeah. I have a map that's already made that
So-
shows this, I just think I haven't seen.
We can do some things to show, show it coming in from the neighborhoods.
Or could we even have a print of the old scorecard they had?
I don't know. What I want to do though is I want to get a reference from you as to where you thought those overlooks were going to be. Because I was having a tough time identifying where they were supposed to be.
That you,
I don't remember. Yeah, I don't think that
we
was
had-
us. Where was the overlook?
Who's talking about the overlooks?
I thought there was three points of,
Exits.
oh, okay. I thought I read overlook somewhere in there.
Like a vista,
Yeah.
like a pretty place to take
Yeah.
a picture.
Yeah.
There's definitely some in the back.
But I don't-
I don't,
All right, so,
I didn't see
I don't know
it.
where
all right, so for the access points, we were talking Harwood?
who wrote that?
We were talking Atlantic Avenue, Harwood, and then we talked about whole
Clark.
12 now.
We put
Were there
them in your
others?
backyard.
The
We talked about
one,
Huntington
Put it on
Meadow.
our driveway.
yeah,
We
Huntington
go to my
Meadow,
deck? No, it's my deck.
Clark, that area.
I mean for the people.
Okay.
We could just have people come down your driveway and stand at the end and look over.
All right,
Stop
we can
shooting
work on that.
squirrels, I guess, huh?
They're doing that.
Nah.
In my backyard.
All right.
Back to the trees, I'm sorry. I think there's, you said it was mentioned, I didn't see it in here.
It is, I went, look back and looked at it too.
Wonderful, it's
Okay.
That
from,
was a recommendation.
It's up on the executive summary.
Because
It's
I
on
think
page
there are a
5.
lot of people that are very antsy about that. And I think it would be good
Well, they
to-
may not go back in the areas they are
I
now,
understand,
but
I'm just saying
there
that,
should be a planting.
I'm just saying that we should, it should be called out well enough
It's not
to,
that big, it's up in the
yeah,
executive summary.
it should be called out somehow well enough that people see it, because there's a lot of people that are, you know, the people on the hike that we went on, there were probably 10 different people that came up and said, how come we cut down all the trees?
Yeah. If you see,
We
if
didn't
you
do
see
it
on
just
social
'cause we
media,
felt-
people talk
We just
about it a
felt
lot.
we wanted to do it.
No,
That's not the way it works.
I said, I think his name is Costello, just write him a note.
Jim?
Yeah, I said, let him know.
But again, yes,
Clear cut
I
it.
woke up one morning and wanted to kill all the trees.
But they,
Seriously though, the key's gonna be, the trees that, you know, a lot of the trees that are there now won't be there over a period of time. So there probably should be a planting program to identify where they should be and
right.
how they do what they do to benefit the area and benefit.
That's what I'm saying, I
the
guess that if that's called out well enough, I
And
just
you,
missed
I mean,
it.
if you want to add that as one of your recommendations, that you could.
I think it
you
maybe
did
should
mention
be
it,
enhanced.
But if you want to enhance it a little bit, you can do that.
I can add that to the conclusion so that we've at least said it twice and
Yeah.
then it's in there and
Yeah,
it's.
Because eventually they're all gonna
separate
die.
I showed
statement.
people while we were hiking, I said, okay, see that big tree just fell down over the track? I said, that's the reason we cut down the trees.
Right,
You know,
right.
it tried to point things out and make it understand a little more.
And there will be
but-
more. I mean, a lot of those pine trees
It's
are horrible
emotional.
to me.
People are
Yeah,
emotional
people
about it.
could- Yeah, yeah.
All right.
Well, let's
Good job.
make a decision to conclude that in the
Somebody
report.
called me.
And
This is gonna-
Is everybody supportive of that?
She was on the committee.
Everybody
She
supportive
lives
of
over
that?
on
I will
250.
sum it up with that as well.
Guys,
Why not?
hands up?
Why?
Charlie Shannon,
Aye.
Yeah.
Okay.
What I vote on?
Hands up or you two are buying dinner
like
from all of
this
us.
we just voted, you're.
All
What
right,
did we just vote on?
good job.
Those
You're buying dinner,
streets are on page 15 that you were asking about the access.
We go for beer instead?
So we'll talk about the park house next time, huh?
Yeah, we haven't had any activity that I'm aware of. Our house yet, so. Thank you all. I can't believe we got through it, but we did. Good effort on your part. Start cleaning up, final draft.
We have another meeting?
Yeah, we're gonna have one more to vote on.
We've got, we've
Well,
got,
there's still like 3 more.
we've got,
Four more at the
is
end.
there a need for another meeting?
I trust the okay.
I think so, we still have a little bit more work to do, right? So I would rather get a sign off in person than
Okay.
over email
All right,
We have a meeting on the calendar for the night.
for the night.
very good. All right. We'll shoot
Can I
for
can
tonight
I
as
just
being our-
say, I want to say, from my point of view, I have really tremendously enjoyed this experience. I think the staff has been great, and I think this group has been great,
I think this.
and I just want to thank you all.
You did a great job, you really have, and it was very civil, it was very polite, and it was very productive. Great job.
Unlike.
All right, so let's shoot for one more meeting?
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, at least
Give you guys the summer off, so we can actually go out and recreate?
Can we bring champagne?
So we can go.
Yeah. Can't have any alcohol.